full support where it's needed.
The Prime Minister bets big on nuclear as the government's energy security strategy is published today.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 7th of April. This is Breakfast on GBNews with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Very nice to see you from our base this week in Manchester. This is our final show of the week. Here's what's leading the news.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected to put nuclear at the heart of the UK's new energy strategy, which launches today. The government promises a major acceleration of homegrown power in a bid for energy independence.
Now, this comes as the Foreign Secretary meets with ministers of the G7 countries in Brussels, where she's expected to push for an accelerated timetable to end the West's dependence on Russian oil.
The US, the UK and the European Union have announced the harshest sanctions yet on Russia in the wake of atrocities committed in Ukraine. The sanctions targeted Russia's banks, with the US also hitting Putin's inner circle, including his daughters.
Very nice to have you on board today on this, our last day in Manchester, and what a week it has been. Lovely to meet so many of you, lovely to hear your views, and you getting in touch and you appearing on the programme is what makes our programme different, OK? So let us know where we should be going next. There have been a lot of repetitions. I was invited, didn't say anything about you, but I was invited to South Africa. Oh. Bring the show to South Africa.
I'm up for that, yes.
No, but they didn't ask you. They asked me, so I'm thinking I could be there.
I've been asked to Liverpool,
right.
Glasgow,
well,
Bristol,
OK, I'll give
Birmingham.
you Liverpool, I'll take
You let us
Cape
know where
Town.
you want us to go next. Anyway, get in touch the usual ways. Email gbnews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews.
Well, our top story this morning is about energy, and the Prime Minister will make nuclear the backbone of Britain's new energy strategy, which will be published today. Up to 8 new reactors are planned in a bid to have 95% of Britain's power come from domestic renewable sources by 2030.
So targets for onshore wind and solar power generation will also be raised, and the strategy is being announced against the backdrop of soaring energy bills and pressure to end the West's reliance on Russian oil and gas.
Well, according to Whitehall, rows over the strategy between Number 10 and the Treasury and the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy were ongoing up until last night. In other words, it's all a mess.
Labour has accused Boris Johnson of caving to his own backbenchers and that the strategy would do nothing to help the millions of families facing an energy crisis.
OK. So all of this comes as the Foreign Secretary meets with other foreign ministers of the G7 countries in a push for a hard deadline on the ending of the West's reliance on Russian oil. Andy Mayer, energy analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs, joins us. No, I don't think this is Andy Mayer. I think this is Simon Hinks, is it?
It sure is.
It sure is. Well, there we are.
I think we're going to Andy Mayer first, are we?
Are we?
Yes,
oh,
I
well,
believe
right.
so.
Okay,
yes,
right.
We're going to Andy Mayer first from the IEA. A very good morning to you, Andy. Look, are we going nuclear? Do you see it going that way?
Well, there's a big nuclear strategy in there, and the government's got very ambitious plans to build 7 to 8 new reactors. The difficulty is that their own impact assessments that was released earlier in the week strongly suggest they're going to really struggle to do that. So what it said was that it would take 13 to 17 years to build each reactor, and that's after they've made the initial investment decision, which won't be happening for most of them until the next parliament. So we could be looking at the 2040s before most of these things are actually in the ground.
The whole thing's a mess. It's not joined up. It's about pleasing every lobby group there is in the country, and we've got to get on with it. We've got to do something. Then you get people like Liz Truss going to the G7 and saying, oh, well, who let this Russian oil thing happen? Got to stop this. Well, I suggest it was your government that let it happen. You know, it is a mess. I just look at it, I think it is an absolute mess, and it's all talk from politicians. How are we going to get this sorted out in a way that it will help, it will take the pain away from the fuel crisis and the cost of living that people are actually going through?
Yeah, so just on the first point, all of the lobby groups are equally unhappy. So The Guardian kicked off last night by accusing the government of picking losers. We're not very happy because the central message from the strategy is your bills are going to stay high and they're going to get much more expensive, because what the government's done is retreated from the only period in British history where energy policy was a success, which was when it was liberalised in the 1990s and towards the early part of the century. And they've gone back to this old model of central state planning, where the wise man in the ministry and his civil servants are going to dictate what we need as the public without very much input from us. So there's a lot of expense built in everywhere. And what they could have done is taken the opportunity.
The energy strategy was liberalised. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Okay, so the thing we used to have was the Central Electricity Generating Board, which tried to centrally plan electricity when it was a lot simpler. What we've got now is a vast grid, which is extremely complicated because we need lots of smaller power stations on it, like the solar panels and the wind turbines. And those power sources are intermittent. So they're all sparking off against each other. And when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, you need lots of gas backup because none of the other storage options are available or cheap. And what that creates is a vast amount of waste, inefficiency, and expense. And what the government could have done is said, OK, we're going to be driven instead by market prices. We're going to have a carbon price that lets us reach our net zero ambition. And we're going to have other things built in there, so there's always something on. We don't want insecurity of supply. We don't want blackouts. But otherwise, just let the market decide. And that means you get the cheapest energy options first, not these giant corporate plans for nuclear power stations and future technology that doesn't exist yet. Stuff that will frankly be invented elsewhere and made cheap by other people rather than at the expense of the British bill payer.
Andy Mayor, do you think that enough is being talked about in relation to actually just reducing demand? It seems to me we're just focusing on trying to find new sources, but we're not talking about simple things. And just an anecdote from the team I've been speaking to here this morning. Everybody was saying to me that they were freezing in their hotel rooms last night. This hotel, it has air conditioning pumping out all through the night. Nobody wants it. We're all freezing. We're in Manchester.
I want it.
Really?
Yes.
Well, at least 2 people said they had it on 30, trying to get it as warm as they could, myself included. Why are we wasting money on air conditioning when we live in England? Why are we wasting money and, just letting our heat pour out of the ceilings rather than properly insulating our homes and our offices?
Well, although most of the Green groups disagree, I think this is the one area where the government's probably more right than wrong, because what they're doing is saying actually energy prices are really high, and that will have a consequence. I mean, that hotel you're in, maybe the prices they're charging are high enough that they can get away with putting the air conditioning on. But quite a lot of other places are saying, no, actually, we're going to turn these things down, we're going to turn them off because we can't afford it. And that's happening across the country. Millions of individual decisions are being made. Do we need to leave the lights on? Do we need to turn the thermostat down? And the government needs to do nothing about that. This is demand-side response through the price mechanism, as it should be. If they started acting on that, they started developing new policies to offer to insulate people's homes for them, all they would do is distort what's happening already and misallocate resources, which is where a lot of this waste comes from. So the Green groups have got this wrong. The government have got it right. They should let the price mechanism work and leave it alone for now.
Andy Mayor, you are an analyst, right? So how do you analyse the F word, fracking?
Well, fracking is just a technique for getting the same molecules out of the ground as we get out of the North Sea. Now, the government, it's very welcome. They've decided they're going to actually get out of the way on the North Sea, but bizarrely have decided that onshore fracking, which happens 1 to 3 kilometres below the ground, is very difficult and very dangerous, which it isn't. We already know this from a decade of experience from the US industry, but in the UK we had a very silly debate where people were catastrophizing and being hysterical about small earth movements, which are the sort of thing that happen from any sort of extractive industry or construction. The entire industry got banned because of an earth movement that was about half as intense as one you would experience from normal construction operations. So it's really a really bad decision. It's great to see the government have put that into review, but the review itself's pretty weak. It does look like it could go either way, and they may simply have done it to kick the can down the road to get themselves past the local elections. But we do need gas. This is a gas supply crisis.
Right. So you're saying to us that fracking was banned for unscientific reasons, simply for politicians because they couldn't take the heat from the lobbyists?
Yeah, it's exactly the same motivation. It's not about the lobbyists here. It's about local people protesting development anywhere. I mean, I live in Surrey. This is NIMBY Central. We will protest the opening of a packet of crisps here, let alone anything like a fracking site or a solar farm or a wind farm or a nuclear power station. If the government keeps maintaining planning rules that allow local residents associations to veto anything happening in their area, we won't have fracking, we won't have the renewable energy, we won't frankly have homes for young people. So they need to bite that bullet and take planning on. They need to make sure that strategic energy resources like these can actually be built. Doesn't matter which technology, but they've all got to be there, and we've all got to have that to have security of supply. So let's get fracking.
Andy Mayer, we've got to leave it there, Andy Mayer. Thank you.
Yeah, and good of you, Andy, to mention residents living near to fracking sites, because we've actually got one in the studio with us. Simon Hinks joins us now. He lives nearby to a quadrilla fracking site in Blackpool. Thank you for joining us bright and early this morning. No, did you resonate with anything that Andy was saying there in terms of the sort of local community's response when quadrilla were fracking near you?
Yeah, I can. The NIMBY element, I can see that, and I've seen that, but there was a lot of out-of-area protesters that seemed to descend on the site and start banging the drum, making out that they were local residents, and there was a lot of local resistance. That wasn't really the case. Friends of the Earth, Greenpeace, Extinction Rebellion, even the Labour Party descended and used this as some kind of a beat for their drum that that they could score points on, for want of better words.
And so do you personally have any objections then to fracking, or did you notice any of these earth tremors that were being described?
No, I've had no problems. I've talked to a lot of people that there's been no problems with this, and I even asked a quadrilla for a site visit. I went and visited the site and shown around the site. The water boreholes that could be examined by the Environmental Agency. There was no problems whatsoever. I even, as part of my research, visited Gonzales in Texas, which is ringed by hundreds, if not thousands, of shale oil and gas sites. Talked to the residents there and asked them, was there water contamination, air pollution, tremors or earthquakes, as they call them, just small seismic events, and they had no problem at all. And the thing that struck me was that the people of Gonzales, Texas, were telling me that their energy bills were actually half that of the rest of America. And I think that's something the government should push forward with, to bring down energy bills. And really I should be sat now talking to you guys, talking about the energy bills halving, not doubling, and then they're going to go up again in October. You know, when the environmentalists talk, they should be using the most environmental way of achieving, you know, gas security in the UK, and that's not LNG tankers. We're all using frack gas from the States now in LNG tankers. We're using shale gas.
Yeah, we are using shale gas, and the situation is we either frack our own or we import it, because we're still dependent on it.
A huge environmental and financial cost that we're all going to be paying for. It's Complete insanity.
Well, the government have commissioned this survey, haven't they? The Royal Geological Survey is going to carry out a risk assessment, and obviously they're far more qualified than we are to determine whether or not the water quality is affected or anything like that, and it'll be really interesting to see what they conclude. As Andy was saying there, that there's 10 years of experience to draw on from the States, but the comparisons there are always, I think, quite different, because where they actually frack in the States are often big, open spaces without sort of compact communities that you see around the Blackpool area. And do you ever think that, you know, it just doesn't really work in a small country?
Well, I disagree there, because Gonzales is roughly about 7,000 people, and that's the same as Kirkham, where I live. And the other side of it is the actual depth of the beds. So it's going to be octopus drilling, so it's along and horizontal, whereas a lot of vertical wells. And it's that visual representation you see in the States that people you know, are very aware of and frightened of. I don't blame them for being frightened, but I've obviously been to the site and had it explained to me. This is going to be subterranean manifolds, so there'll be no visual impact. It'll just be a manhole cover. So, you know, if you want to, you know, industrialise the countryside, then fill it with, you know, solar panels that you've imported from China that are manufactured using slaves, Uyghur slaves. That's the truth of the matter.
Well, it's very interesting you actually getting airtime, because I don't switch on any TV station and hear people who are local residents being able to say, fracking, what's the problem? And, you know, for people who actually believe that it's going to create earthquakes, like tectonic plates are going to move. I mean, you're laughing. I absolutely am staggered that people take these concerns seriously. You know, what it takes to create an earthquake, they should go to an earthquake site and say, that's an earthquake, this is a rumble vibration. I mean, basically, fracking was banned in 2019 based on one single incident which lasted under 3 seconds, right? That produced surface tremors at a level half that deemed safe for construction. Apparently it was the equivalent to dropping something like a basketball on the ground and then measuring that.
I think the villain of the piece is Sir Ed Davey, who pushed for this traffic light system. No other industry that creates a seismic event is so restricted. And he even said a couple of years ago he was proud of the fact that he's managed to stop this industry. Well, I bet he's not proud now, and I'm sure the Liberal Democrats won't thank him for this, you know, when this gets dragged up again.
You know, Simon, there we've got Liz Truss going around saying we've got to stop this dependence on Russian oil and gas. They're all complicit. They all signed up to it. They all allowed it to happen. Now they're all wetting their pants as to what to do next.
I think it was cheap and lazy, the amount, especially Germany, getting a sweetheart deal on the price of the gas that they actually imported. And talking about Nord Stream 2, there was even talking about Nord Stream 3. And the idea that Kwasi Kwarteng now is going to push forward with more solar panels, wind turbines, and rely on rare earth metals that are predominantly from China. You know, if we've seen trouble now in Eastern Europe with a certain amount of reliance on, you know, Russian gas and Russian oil, what are we going to be talking about in 10 years from now when we're relying on China for the rare earth metals, solar panels, the lithium, the car batteries? It opens a whole new Pandora's box, in my opinion.
Well, that side of the argument controls the media. That's who the media responds to, and that's who they listen to. And if you don't listen to them, you're seen as unreasonable. Do you see yourself as an unreasonable man?
Yeah.
End of.
You don't need to say anymore.
Yeah. How many people think like you? Do you think the mood is changing on fracking?
Yes, I think there was a survey recently, I think it was in The Sun, that there's more people, a lot more people now that, you know, recognise the need for the shale gas. And I think the thing is, as people start to open their energy bills, and unfortunately, no matter what Kwasi Kwarteng does today, these energy bills are going to go up again in October. You know, I think the people you've got to look at, the silent majority, millions of people in fuel poverty, especially in the Blackpool area, and millions of people will join those people. And not only will it affect those people, but obviously it's a case of industry that are going to bear the brunt of this. And I think you mentioned about the prices of these things. It's going to affect so many things. That energy is the cornerstone of our democracy and our way of life.
Yeah, okay. Interesting to hear from you. Simon Hinks, so he lives near a fracking site, and you heard him. He's got no problem with what's going on. He studied it. Your views, let us know. Matter of fact, those views are already coming in, and Deb and Paul say they disagree with you. They say we should be pushing for more wind turbines and using power from tidal flows in seas and rivers, not fracking. You talk about the small amount of energy that those create and connected to the national grid. They're unreliable.
Yeah. Tony says, why fracking? It's destructive. It takes up valuable farmland, whereas tidal power is boundless, abundant and not determined by oligarchs. And Margaret says we should never have halted fracking. As for tremors, they always occurred from time to time in that area, and others nothing to do with the practice of fracking. So let us know what you think.
Well, Paul Harrison, we'll finish with him.
Yeah.
How can intelligent people not see the benefit of securing our own energy supply? And that's the question, really, at the end of the day. Simon Hinks, very interesting to hear from you. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it. OK, the time is 6:19. Time to take a look at the headlines this morning. And as we've been hearing, the government is to announce its energy security strategy today. And nuclear groups are welcoming the energy strategy, describing it as a step change. EDF's chief executive says building more new nuclear power plants will reduce Britain's dependence on overseas gas and keep energy prices stable. The Foreign Secretary has told NATO there is no time for false comfort, despite Russia's failure to secure victory in Ukraine. She's expected to urge other foreign ministers to maintain their pressure on Moscow when they meet later today.
Labour has called on the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, to explain his wife's non-domicile tax status. It follows reports in The Independent that the Chancellor's wife could have saved millions not paying UK tax on foreign income. Akshata Murthy, believed to be worth billions, has defended her non-dom status.
Well, as you've just been hearing there, the Foreign Secretary will today meet with G7 leaders. This is happening in Brussels. She's pushing for a hard deadline on ending the West's reliance on Russian oil. Yeah,
this comes as the US and the UK agree to send more weapons and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, with UK military chiefs saying the next 3 weeks will be critical.
Well, former head of counter-terrorism at the Ministry of Defence, Major General Chip Chapman, joins us now. Major, good morning to you.
Good morning, Eamonn.
Yeah, right. So, Russia and this situation in Brussels today, what do you think can be achieved?
Well, on the 10th and 11th of March, there was a thing called the Versailles Declaration, which already said that the EU has agreed to phase out the dependency on Russian oil, gas and coal as soon as possible. But it's, of course, what as soon as possible means from a EU perspective. And at the moment, there's a mutual dependency. So the EU gets 43% of its gas, which is the big consumer, not really oil and gas, from Russia. But there's a mutual dependency where Russia exports 73% of its gas to the EU. And you have a real tension here because some of that gas actually goes across Ukraine. And so transit fees for gas are actually being paid to the Ukraine at the moment. There's 3 major pipelines, Blue Stream, Turk Stream and Nord Stream. So I think the easy, quick win is phasing out oil and coal imports from Russia. It is not so simple to get rid of the gas. And one of the conundrums we have here is that John McCain, the former senator and presidential candidate in America, once said that Russia is no more than a gas station masquerading as a country. And if you actually get rid of that, and Russia can't find alternative markets, India or China, then you have a country which could implode in the future. And one of the last things you want in a geostrategic sense is a Russia which is imploding, a sort of Bosnia from the 90s with nukes.
Yeah, of course. I mean, God, that sounds horrendous. What do you make of these reports in the papers this morning? I think the Times have got the story that Britain is gearing up to send some more military vehicles to support Ukraine because the next 3 weeks could be critical. And Zelensky coming out overnight and saying if we don't get the arms that we need, Putin's going to interpret this as permission to go back on the attack.
Well, I think Putin will still be on the attack, but he's done what a good strategist would do at the moment. So he's taken really bits of the 20th century strategist Little Heart. So he's adjusting at the moment his end to his means. They know that they've failed in the two attacks in the central region and the western region, Kyiv and Kharkov and around there, and are therefore adjusting that to the area of the Donbass, which Putin could say was his original attack strategy, i.e. was going in there to liberate the Russian speakers in Luhansk and Donetsk. Now, that is not true because he wanted to knock over the political polity, take Kiev in day 3 and all that sort of stuff. But from a political perspective, he has done that for a good reason. So he's failed in his grand strategic objectives. He's failed in his original strategic objectives. He might not fail if he scales that down to what he originally said about going in as a peacekeeping operation. It's nonsense. Invited in, nonsense. And also because of genocide, also nonsense, as said by the International Court of Justice. I don't think the next 3 weeks are crucial, but what is crucial is the continuance of weapons to the Ukrainians, particularly the defensive weapons initially, that's the air defense weapons, American Stingers, Javelins, things like that, and also potentially offensive weapons, because there's no way that the Ukrainians can go ultimately on the offensive in the Donbass region without armoured support. And that's this notion that you would bring sort of T-64s, T-72s, old Russian or Soviet type equipment in from the former Eastern countries. There is no point providing large armoured forces or equipment from Western forces, because it's not a capability unless you train on it and know how to do it. And the Ukrainians might not have the time to do that.
Worrying times. OK, Major General Chip Chapman, always good to get your thoughts. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
So here we are with the government set to unveil a big energy announcement today. They call it a strategy. We'll get a tour around Sizewell nuclear plant. Doing that after your weather update.
Hello, good morning. It's cold and it's windy out there first thing, and there'll be some hill snow in places as well, mainly northern Scotland. But through the day, actually, brightening skies will bring sunny spells for many as this area of low pressure moves into the North Sea. Now, as it moves away, it is bringing colder air southwards across the country, along with spells of rain, hill snow and showers. But the isobars will slowly start to spread out, and that means that the strongest winds that we've seen overnight will begin to moderate. Nevertheless, it's a windy day, and the hill snow that we're seeing across northern Scotland will push south, degenerate into an area of showers, and mainly the theme through the afternoon is for bright spells and showers. Rain and hail at lower levels, snow over hills, those showers edging further and further south through the day, but it's actually mainly dry and bright in the south, 12 Celsius in the south, 8 for Manchester, 8 for Newcastle, 6 to 7 for the Northern Isles. There'll be further showers coming through during Thursday night, but actually, as we go through the hours of darkness, increasingly the showers become fewer and further between, with a better chance of clear spells, lighter winds, and as a result, a frost forming in many places, particularly for Northern Ireland, central, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, for example. I think in the far south, it'll turn cloudy and there could be a few spots of rain to wake up to during tomorrow morning. That rain will eventually pull away, allowing brighter skies, even some sunshine to develop quite widely across England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland keep the brisk wind from the north, stays cold, and as a result we'll see further wintry showers, particularly for northern Scotland. But away from the showers, actually for many it's a dry and bright day, plenty of sunshine eventually across most parts of England and Wales, but 10 degrees in the south, only 6 or 7 in the far north. So it's going to feel chilly, and with that chilly air in place, it's a frosty start for many of us on Saturday. But Saturday, with plenty of sunshine around, with lighter winds, despite the chill, will feel like a more pleasant day.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Still to come on today's show, we are catching up with our roving reporter, Bradley Harris.
Where is he?
Well, he's out. He's on his bike.
He's on his bike.
He's been talking about Manchester's new B bikes. They're taking over the city, and Bradley's giving us a little tour on a bicycle.
Okay.
And in the next hour...
Chain restaurants are made to display calorie contents on their menu. Very good idea.
Awful.
Thing is, I don't like chain restaurants. I don't.
I don't like calorie counters.
Do you?
It spoils the fun.
I'd rather see the calorie count than the price. That would be more important to me.
I'd rather see neither. Ignorance is bliss.
Well, I'll see the big calories and I'll say, no, even I can't do that. Right, get rid of that. Do that. But chain restaurants are a blight. They're all the same. It's all pre-packaged, processed, portion controlled, and people think, oh, I've had a nice night out at Café Rouge. No, you haven't. You just had a... No, but it's the sort of thing like you just... Everybody gets the same
are
thing.
available. We had a lovely meal yesterday, didn't we, in a one-off?
It wasn't a chain restaurant.
It wasn't
a family-run restaurant, yeah. And that's what I think's lovely. But when you see these chain after chains serving up the same stuff everywhere... And you know what? What camera am I on? Right. Let me tell you this about your chain restaurants as well. A lot of them don't make the food in their kitchens. They reheat the food. So your food is made somewhere like West Bromwich or whatever, and then it's sent to Scotland, and it's sent to Liverpool, and it's sent to Norwich, and sent to Plymouth and whatever. And then it comes to the kitchen. The only thing they do sort of live in the kitchen is things like steak and fish. And the rest of it's just sort of microwaved all back up.
Have you ever
again.
worked in a restaurant?
No, I've never worked in a restaurant.
See, I worked
no.
in pubs and things on my gap year, and I remember just thinking, oh, God, eating out is taking all the magic away, because the food would be prepared / microwaved, and then it would sit on a hot plate until we were ready to take it out. And sometimes you'd see them washing the salad in the sink that, oh, you don't want to know what goes on behind the kitchen doors.
But what I would say is, I mean, respect to anybody who does work in a kitchen. It's hard work. And I always think chefs who do things like they work in ship galleys and very small places as well. So my respect to people who actually work in kitchens. But the idea of all of these being linked and chain restaurants, I think it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. Anyway, that's us saying, remember, we want to hear from you throughout the whole programme today, so get up and get in touch.
Yeah, GBViews at gbnews.uk or tweet us at GBNews.
Right, so it's expected that Britain's plans to massively scale up nuclear capability as part of energy security will be unveiled later today. So the Business Secretary has suggested 6 or 7 new sites could be in operation very soon. Let's go to our reporter Amelia Harper. And where's she been to?
She's been to Sizewell B power station in Suffolk to see what the future is for nuclear energy.
Operating since 1955, Sizewell B supplies 3% of the UK's electricity, or enough to power 2.5 million homes in East Anglia. It's one of 8 nuclear power stations in the UK. Most of the existing reactors are due to reach the end of their lives and shut down before 2030, but more are being built. French energy company EDF is currently building Hinkley Point C power station in Somerset. It also plans to build another plant, Sizewell C, next to Sizewell B in Suffolk. It's been backed by £100 million of government funding. Robert Gunn is the station director at Sizewell B power station.
So at the moment, nuclear is just about 20% of the country's electricity, 24/7, 365 days of the year. But if you look forward, when we get the new power stations on, Hinkley C, Sizewell C, and here at Sizewell B can provide power for over 15 million homes, a fantastic amount of energy for the country.
But not everyone is convinced about the future for nuclear, including local campaigner Alison Downs.
There are numerous future energy scenarios that do not include Sizewell C, and clearly solar, onshore wind, offshore wind, all of those can roll out faster and more cheaply than nuclear power. Our energy crisis is now, and we shouldn't be putting so much money into a technology that won't deliver for at least 15 years, by which time our energy landscape can be transformed by storage and energy efficiency. The Sizewell C project is risky, expensive and incredibly slow to build, and everyone in the country should be concerned about it because they will all have to help pay for it, not just the people who live here.
Projects on the scale of Sizewell C take about a decade to go from concept to reality.
We've worked really hard with the local community to take on feedback, and that's actually helped us to shape the proposal, and based on that feedback there has been quite a number of large changes made to make the project as seamless as possible for the local community. On the other side of that though, there'll literally be thousands if not tens of thousands of jobs being created and tens of millions of pounds being pumped into the local community and indeed hundreds of millions into the UK economy.
Amid a cost of living crisis, the government is looking to other low-carbon energy sources. Nuclear is high on the agenda, but the build timescales mean it won't start making a difference for many years to come. Amelia Harper, GB News, Suffolk.
So there we are. We have an energy crisis and nobody can solve it for at least 10 years. So you're stuck with your bills by the sound of it. We'll be talking about that and lots of other things.
Yeah, we will. We're going through the papers in just a moment. We've got Liz Kershaw and Emma Kenny. That's after this.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Let's bring you up to date with what's happening news-wise. The Foreign Secretary has told NATO there's no time for false comfort, despite Russia's failure to secure victory in Ukraine.
Yeah, she's expected to urge other foreign ministers to maintain their pressure on Moscow when they meet later today.
Nuclear groups are welcoming the government's new energy strategy, describing it as a step change. EDF's chief executive says building more nuclear power plants will reduce Britain's dependence on overseas gas and keep energy prices stable.
The Prime Minister has said it seems sensible that transgender women should not compete in female sports. Boris Johnson said they're complex issues that can't be solved with one swift, easy piece of legislation. His comments come as transgender cyclist Emily Bridges was prevented from riding in national championships last weekend.
Prince Harry has made a surprise call to Sandhurst. The Duke of Sussex appeared via video link to the UK Invictus Games team as they gathered for final training. He attended the event in the Netherlands. He will attend later this month after missing his grandfather Prince Philip's memorial last week.
OK, it's time to go through your Thursday morning newspapers today. We're joined by the psychologist Emma Kenny and the broadcaster Liz Kershaw to take us through those. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Yes, and we should say you will notice the northwestern accents quite strongly. So it's good. It's good. Overall, the two of you, we have been delighted to be here. Big growth in our audience, which is why we're here particularly. What would you say in praise of your region?
Well, I just feel at home when I'm here. Culturally, I'm at home. I don't have to explain my funny northern ways, as I do to my children still. And it's just, looking around, I feel quite giddy because, do you remember when the tallest building... You won't, Isabel. The tallest building in Manchester was near Victoria Station, the CIS building, and we were all in awe of that. It was about 15 floors. And here we are, surrounded by skyscrapers on the 23rd floor. It's booming. I just wish my sat-nav had kept up, because last night I ended up driving through St Peter's Square the wrong way over the tram lines.
Oh, no.
Over the tram lines, over the tram lines. OK, well, let's delve into the papers. Emma, with you first of all. Rishi Sunak's wife attracting a lot of controversy.
Yeah, front page of the Daily Mirror basically saying Sunak wife tax fury because she's been paying non-dom rates of tax. Because she is actually somebody who lives in another country officially and she has a different passport, she's allowed to benefit from this particular tax issue. But clearly, when national insurance has just gone up and all the things around that, it's provoking some really challenging conversations and people feel really aggrieved. I think add to that the controversy about Russia, that's making people feel that it's one rule for them and one rule for us. And I think that makes sense, right?
It's interesting because her husband's been riding so high in the popularity stakes, hasn't he, for so long, and it certainly seems, I mean, why has this suddenly come to light? People are digging around, aren't they, trying to find some dirt because they are frustrated.
And also I think that, you know, when furlough was happening and a lot of people were maybe getting a stress life that had changed because of the fact that they were getting less time at work and more time at home, he seemed like a saviour, but now it's coming to pay back those situations. People are struggling, and poverty. Look, in the first 3 weeks of lockdown, they did loads of research that said people in poor communities were going to struggle more than ever. That was over 2 years ago now. Now, poverty is at an all-time high in the UK, so it makes sense that people are really upset about this.
I've not been a fan of his. I've said it on this programme before. I just think his naked ambition has shone through. And yes, as Emma says, as soon as all the free money stops and he starts clawing it back, people are looking more cynically at his opportunistic photo shoots, borrowing somebody else's car to be shown to be a man of the people in his very expensive Alan Partridge-style sports casuals, and the crushing, grinding insult of saying, oh, well, we'll put up the threshold for national insurance in July, so in 3 months' time, we're taking 1.5% more off you from the lowest paid upwards from the 5th of April this week. In July, we'll increase the threshold by £3,000. And all these other insults to working poor. And then he's, you know, all these things are leaking out now. I think he's toast. political. I got an invite this week. Have dinner in the presence of Rishi Sunak. That'll be 75 quid for prawn cocktail and Black Forest Gatto. I think that's really disgusting. I'm not going to sit there and pay 75 quid.
I had a really disgusting piece of Black Forest Gatto this week.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you go for that 70s classic?
That's what I was looking forward to.
Yeah.
But then this night before.
Oh, right.
And it was a slice of nouveau cuisine sort of that arrived.
Deconstructed.
Deconstructed. And I thought, what is this? It's this mousse type thing that was there. It was the devil. So
Oh, no.
It was. I thought, Black Forest Gatto is Black Forest Gatto.
Yeah.
It's a slice of cake with cream and things on top of it. And I look forward. But this was like a mousse.
Did you have steak? Did you have prawn cocktail and steak first?
But I do that regularly. Isabel, amazingly, doesn't know what steak I am. But you don't.
It's emerged that apparently that was a thing before I was born. It was a 70s thing.
Well, I go and get it most weeks.
Really? Where? In Weybridge?
Yes. Will you come with me and I'll bring you...
I'm not sure I'm into...
Do you eat steak?
Yes, yeah, I love a good steak.
Why wouldn't you not be into 70s food? I mean, chicken in a basket. Not try that?
Fondue.
Fondue. I mean, it's lovely. Matter of fact, I will go on record as saying the 70s was the best decade ever. Ever, is my view.
Maybe not for food,
For music, for food.
Music, yeah.
They used to bring food out like, you know, bird's eye mousse. They used to do all the Findus pancakes.
Pop-tarts, Findus pancakes,
they did all those things. Starsky and Hutch, Kojak, Charlie's Angels. I could go on. It was an amazing
Platform
decade.
shoes, Afghan coats.
High boy trousers, the whole bit. Tank tops, whatever.
This area was buzzing in the 70s. I was talking earlier.
Yeah.
I used to... all my family were busy running pubs, so I'd put the slap on and sneak out and come clubbing in Manchester at 14, 15. Can you imagine it now?
Yeah. My son phoned me tonight. He said, Dad, where you're staying, it's club night under the arches where I go clubbing. I said, well, I'll let you know what it's like, son. I'll go out. I was like, I'm just in from clubs.
You've been out all night.
Been out all night under the arches. So happy. Right, OK, so where are we going next?
Should we go to the Mail and talk about Boris getting involved? Quite interesting intervention from him on the whole transgender debate.
Yes. Yeah, so he's come out and said, finally, a voice of common sense. People are saying, because of the fact that he's saying that he doesn't feel that people who were born biological males should compete in female sports. And it's a massively controversial area, of course, because nobody specifically chooses to be trans. It's a challenging experience per se, but certainly it seems, whether we want to be PC or otherwise, that there are biological issues for individuals who've gone through male puberty and then are placed in sports with females. And I think it's a situation that is probably going to evolve, because women need to have a place in sport when they've worked their entire lives to get to that position, and to have that taken away to some degree by people who don't want to take anything away. It's not that they're actively choosing to do anything but love their sport. The reality is we have to find a way of moderating it where it's fair. And I think that this debate is something that is getting a lot of kudos. We're talking about it more. Finally, people aren't afraid. Women aren't afraid to say that they want some places that feel like they are for them. But I think for Boris Johnson to wade in at this point is probably going to have some backlash as well, because arguably it's a sensitive area. I personally feel that I just want everybody to be accepted as they are, but at the same time I think maybe they look at something like women's sports, men's sports and mixed sports if they wish to, you know, but allow people who've worked really hard their entire lives to succeed in those areas.
Let's go to the front page of the Star. Liz, you've got a story of a chef here on board a P&O ship who said he was sacked because he was British, he believes.
Well, when the 800 people were fired by P&O, or a great cartoon in the papers in the last week, it was private actually, it's got a ferry going across the channel and it says on the side P45 and O. But the fact that all 800 of them were British citizens and mainly white, the majority white, I think he's got a case because they've been replaced by workers who've been recruited abroad who are who can blame them. They think, you know, the money's good compared to back home, not being patronised, and it's a fact. And they're coming here and they're being paid £5 an hour instead of at least minimum wage. But I've thought this for years. If you've ever been on a cruise ship, I look round and think, oh, all the girls with trays in the bars, well, they're all, you know, are Filipinos, because you chat to them. All the waiters in the restaurant are Goan. You see some of the officers in the brown uniforms, they're the engineering officers, they're usually Indian.
You know your stuff here, don't you?
And the staff who sit at the table with you, the captain and his, you know, his first officer and his navigator, are all white and English speaking as their first language. So you think recruitment policy, it's obviously done on national lines, so it's thereby it's per se it's racist. And you talk to these guys at the table and say, when did you last see your family? Oh, 6 months ago. It makes me feel really bad.
Yeah. There's a lot to talk about, but I might come back to that next time round as well. Finally and briefly, Emma, here we are into the Easter holidays, and anybody who's heading to an airport is not looking forward to it.
No, I mean, the queues are exponential, it seems, and also I think that this is at a time where everyone's so desperate. Those people who are lucky enough to afford a holiday, they just want to get away after a pretty horrific few years. So I think that this is going to play out over the summer, and I think it's also striking that we're probably looking at policies that were instituted that are now so outmoded and outdated, such as the testing, the constant concern about COVID, therefore people being off all the time. It just feels like it's time to accept that it's get back to living, not existing, and that would cure and remedy a lot of these scenarios.
OK, your views on that, your stories on that, please do let us know. Tweet us at GBNews. Thank you for the moment, Liz and Emma, and you're going to be back in about 45 minutes' time.
Now, yesterday, if you're watching the programme, you'll have seen Bradley Harris was out and about in a taxi. This morning, he's traded in 4 wheels for something a bit different. Let's see what our North West of England reporter up to this morning. Hello, Bradley.
Hello, good morning. I'm back on the Deansgate Strip, not too far away from you, Isabel and Eamonn. Why am I here and why am I on Manchester B bikes? Well, because Greater Manchester is actually trying to introduce a completely carbon neutral transport network. And the way that they're doing that is by introducing electric vehicles, even things like the bike that I'm on now. It's actually completely electric. Really nice ride. People can get around the city like I'm doing now, and actually just making it easier for people to commute. And it's not just good for people, it's good for the planet, because of course this bike isn't using any fuel, it's using electric, and it's also using my legs in order to get this around the city. I did that quite well there, I thought. That was my first time on a B-bike. And it was pretty good, actually. It's not just bikes, though. This is a relatively new scheme that they've got in place, which was introduced a few months ago. By the summer this year, Greater Manchester will see over 1,500 of these bikes and 200 stations. 300 of them will be electric. The rest will be by pedal power. And it's part of the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham's vision to deliver a B network in Greater Manchester. What is that? Well, it comprises of bicycles, buses and trams and the rail all coming together as one system, a bit like the London-style transport network that they have down there at the moment. They want to kind of replicate that up here. And similarly with the trams, they actually use renewable energy. Right now we're standing by Deansgate tram stop. Up those steps is where the trams make their way in through the city centre and onwards into Greater Manchester and neighbouring boroughs. And that's part of the plan as well, is connecting all of these neighbouring towns across Greater Manchester up together, using bikes, using trams, using rail. And that's their plan this year, and certainly in the next 10 years they want to be completely carbon neutral, using electric as the way forward instead of using gas or fuel, petrol, diesel. In terms of the cost, how much is it going to cost you? Because when you think of investing in electric to get around, like an electric car, you automatically think it's expensive. Well, these bikes are actually pretty cheap to hire. 50p to activate it, and then it's actually just 5 pence every minute. If you're looking at the electric version, double that. It's going to be £1 to activate it and 10p to get around. So certainly a fantastic way to get around the city.
Oh, that is good value. That is really good value.
Yeah, and you know, so much to see. And when you're out and about in those bikes, unfortunately, you might see homeless people. And we have been trying to shed a spotlight on this as to what the situation is and what amazing work certain charities do. We've now got Judy Vickers in the studio. Judy has got a homeless charity called Life Share, right?
Yeah.
And one of the big things you'll be doing at this time of the day is you'll be gearing up for breakfast.
Yeah, we do breakfast services at the weekend, yeah, Saturdays and Sundays. We don't do in the week, we run the home, young people service during the week. We are the oldest homeless charity in Manchester.
Judy, tell me a bit about what made you decide to get involved in all of this, because you found yourself with 2 small children in a women's refuge, suddenly a homeless family trying to provide for your children after a relationship breakdown. Did that inspire you then to try and, I mean, goodness knows how, tell us the story of how you first of all got out of that situation, but also why you've then decided to make this a thing that you spend your time doing.
Yeah, I think that's definitely where my passion came from. I think you get demonised a lot of the times when you're homeless and what have you, and really homelessness can come to anybody through no fault of your own. Yes, I suffered DV, ended up in a refuge, and then rebuilt my life from '96. Came working with Life Share in 2000, and yeah, my passion to be the voice of the voiceless and to fight social injustice and to break stigma beliefs where you're demonised because you're now suddenly without a home.
What voice would you give those voiceless? You know, what would you say on their behalf?
Well, speaking up for those people, you know, again, sort of trying to spot those negative stereotypes, make sure that, you know, that everybody is a person-centred approach, everybody's an individual, and stop people demonising people for being down on the luck, being homeless.
And I suppose what you bring to Life Share then is having had that experience yourself. And do the people that you're helping really respond to that? They'd look at you as a sort of inspiration and say, look, wow, you've been through this, and you give them hope.
Yeah, I think so, because it's like you've got to give people positive regard, and I think if you've been there from a place of a situation, then you can give empathy and support to people that, look, you know, keep going, and the way out of it is education and employment, and that's what we support people on the pathway to do.
Yeah. How do you support things like you know, data technology? There's data poverty, there's technology poverty as well. How on earth do you get that or relate that to people who are on the streets?
Oh, that is like the next sort of thing, because you've not just got food and fuel poverty, you've got data poverty, because the way that the benefit system is geared up, you've got to be able to fill in your universal credit journal. If you don't fill it in, then you're getting sanctioned and you're not getting any money. If you want to bid on a property, you've got to go online to bid on a property, registering with a GP. So if you haven't got means and access to that, then you then become even further excluded and marginalised. So we formed the MDC, powered by Life Share, which is Manchester Digital Collective, bringing 16 other organisations and voluntary sector. We ask the general public to donate the phones, donate their own devices. We clean them up and we redistribute them with data SIM cards. We did a map of Manchester where all the free Wi-Fi sections are, so you can go and sit there, bid on your property, do your journal, because if you can't be digitally included, you're excluded. It's a digital high street. I mean, I used to be a bit of a digital dinosaur, but I saw in 2015 that, you know, the benefit reforms, things are changing, and unless we get our service prepared, we're going to be left behind.
Well, pushing that change is Judy Vickers there. She's the operations manager for the charity Life Share. Help them out if you can. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. 4 minutes now before 7 o'clock. Here's the weather.
Hello, good morning. It's cold and it's windy out there first thing, and there'll be some hill snow in places as well, mainly northern Scotland. But through the day, actually, brightening skies will bring sunny spells for many as this area of low pressure moves into the North Sea. Now, as it moves away, it is bringing colder air southwards across the country, along with spells of rain, hill snow and showers. but the isobars will slowly start to spread out, and that means that the strongest winds that we've seen overnight will begin to moderate. Nevertheless, it's a windy day, and the hill snow that we're seeing across northern Scotland will push south, degenerate into an area of showers, and mainly the theme through the afternoon is for bright spells and showers. Rain and hail at lower levels, snow over hills, those showers edging further and further south through the day, but it's actually mainly dry and bright in the south. 12 Celsius in the south, 8 for Manchester, 8 for Newcastle, 6 to 7 for the Northern Isles. There'll be further showers coming through during Thursday night, but actually, as we go through the hours of darkness, increasingly the showers become fewer and further between, with a better chance of clear spells, lighter winds, and as a result, a frost forming in many places, particularly for Northern Ireland, central, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, for example. I think in the far south, it'll turn cloudy and there could be a few spots of rain to wake up to during tomorrow morning. That rain will eventually pull away, allowing brighter skies, even some sunshine to develop quite widely across England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland keep the brisk wind from the north, stays cold, and as a result we'll see further wintry showers, particularly for northern Scotland. But away from the showers, actually for many it's a dry and bright day, plenty of sunshine eventually across most parts of England and Wales, but 10 degrees in the south, only 6 or 7 in the far north. So it's going to feel chilly, and with that chilly air in place, it's a frosty start for many of us on Saturday. But Saturday, with plenty of sunshine around, with lighter winds, despite the chill, will feel like a more pleasant day.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls, and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate, and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
The Prime Minister bets big on nuclear as the government's energy security strategy is to be published today.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Just after 7 o'clock on this Thursday, the 7th of April, breakfast in GBNews, broadcasting live from Manchester with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel, Webster. You're very welcome.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected to put nuclear at the heart of the UK's new energy strategy, which launches today. The government is promising a major acceleration of homegrown power in a bid for energy independence.
Now, all of this comes as the Foreign Secretary arrives at the G7 meeting, that's in Brussels, where she's expected to push for an accelerated timetable to end the West's dependence on Russian oil.
The US, the UK and the European Union have announced the harshest sanctions yet on Russia in the wake of the atrocities committed in Ukraine. The sanctions targeted Russia's banks, with the US also hitting Putin's inner circle, including his adult daughters.
It is our last day in Manchester today, and what a week it's been. There you are, there's the skyline.
Stunning sunrise there.
Yeah, stunning sunrise. And what is it you want to say about this city? Good and bad, I suppose, and let us know where we should be going next. None of us really want to go to an airport because we're going to be discussing that later. Chaos, it seems to be around the country. Not as good as it should be, especially for the Easter holidays. Let us know your views.
Yeah, you can email GBNews at GBviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GBnews.
Well, leading the news this morning, Boris Johnson will make nuclear power the backbone of a new energy strategy for Britain. It'll be published today.
Yes, up to 8 new reactors are planned in a bid to have 95% of Britain's energy come from domestic renewable sources by 2030.
Targets for onshore wind and solar power will be raised. The strategy is being announced against a backdrop of soaring bills and pressure to end the West's reliance on Russian oil and gas.
Well, according to Whitehall sources, rows over the strategy between Number 10 and the Treasury have been waged right up until the wire last night, still in some disagreement.
Labour accused Boris Johnson of caving in to his own backbenchers and that the strategy would do nothing to help millions of families facing an energy crisis.
Well, for more on this, Angela Knight is the former CEO of Energy UK, and she joins us now. Very good morning to you, Angela. Look, it seems as though we're going nuclear big time. I just wonder if that's going to help the problem in the short term.
Yes, I think it was expected that we would go nuclear big time, because a combination of nuclear and particularly wind energy will give us the energy security that certainly the recent problems between Russia, the war between Russia and Ukraine, and the problems of the gas wholesale market have shown is necessary. The question that you rightly pose, though, is that nuclear generators can take a long time to build and are very expensive. And that's why I note that in what has been said so far, there has been something of a focus on the small-scale nuclear power stations rather than the huge ones that we've had in the past. And I think that's a very important thing to think about, because these small-scale nuclear reactors, of which Rolls-Royce is one of the designers, I believe Elon Musk has got an investment in them as well, these can be built much quicker. They're also repeatable, and the cost is much lower. So I suspect that whilst the number may be 8 in total, that is referencing the large nuclear reactors, and some of that number will in fact, or that quantum of power, will in fact be made up by these small, repeatable nuclear reactors, which, as I say, are more likely to be able to get external investment because they're cheaper and they're quicker from starting to dig in the ground to the point at which you can switch them on.
Okay.
Angela, from what I remember about you, you are a woman of action. You're your own mini little power station yourself as to things you want getting done. Is this a strategy at all, or is this just a mishmash of pleasing people? We're with wind, we're solar, we're fracking, we're, I don't know, it's all over the place, joining into the network of power distribution around the country. None of this is going to solve the energy crisis at the moment. None of this is going to solve the bills that are coming through people's letterboxes. What is your overall view? What should be done?
There never was an ability to suddenly magic new sources of energy quickly. Much of the strategy that we're looking at now is, in my view, a strategy that should have been decided some 6-10 years ago. Successive governments, I'm afraid, have put energy to one side. Yeah, they've focused on shutting down coal-fired power stations and building wind, and that's right. But they've never focused on the security piece, and they've always assumed that the wholesale price of gas around the world was going to remain low, and therefore they could take their time. And so we've poddled along, whether it was under Ed Miliband when he was Energy Secretary, Ed Davey when he was, and indeed now. So yes, to actually make a big decision which says this is what we're going to do, both in the supply of electricity, but also in respect of use of gas for gas central heating, because that's what the hydrogen piece in this policy is all about, is a good thing. Dealing with today, well, right now, the only way that you can actually assist on the cost of energy is by financial intervention by government to the poorer ends of society. That's the only way that you can do something quickly. In a relatively short period of time, it's about increasing more gas out of the North Sea, both from existing wells, but by digging new wells as well, because that'll get us more gas over the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. The fracking proposition, we should have actually run a proper, controlled, environmental trial on fracking some time ago, but a stop was put on that, and I think that's a pity. Inside the whole of energy are a lot of people with a lot of emotional commitments, either to one thing or another. Stand back, put the scientists in charge, the technologists in charge, and then what you have is a good long-term plan. And I would argue that all politicians need to get off their emotional high ground on this, because there's a long-term problem for the UK. That's what this energy strategy addresses. There's a medium problem in the UK, that is more gas locally, and North Sea, looking at fracking, some of that can deal with that problem. And the very short term is exactly the one that you say, what do you do about people's bills? And the answer is, if you're earning reasonable money, like, dare I say it, you and me, and no doubt many people watching this broadcast, we're going to have to actually pay for it. And for the poorer end of societies, we've got to help them out of the...
Angela, I just want to get your views on onshore versus offshore wind farms. There's apparently a bit of a cabinet disagreement on this. What could you see as being the pros and cons? And you know, we're up here in Manchester. It's been really windy overnight. We're up on the 23rd floor. It seemed to me it would have been a great night to generate some energy. You know, where do we stand on that?
We've probably been generating a lot of electricity by wind overnight. The onshore-offshore debate, yes, you're right. As far as I'm aware, all the rumours and all the commentary say it happens in Cabinet, but by goodness, it's happening in the country. And one of the things that the political classes need to do is reflect what happens in the country. And there is a lot of concern about onshore wind, but at the same time, I'm sure there are some communities where, you know, there's sufficient barriers. You can put the onshore wind, you know, over the top of the hill or whatever, where actually you can put a package together and say, you know, those communities are prepared to accept it. If that's the case, I say go ahead. Much of the offshore wind is more expensive to build, of course, and it's rather more complicated. You've got to attach it to the grid, and the grid that we built in the country went straight down the middle, linking up all the coal-fired power stations which sat on their coal fields, and then they went out to the side where we had the nuclear power. So when you build offshore, you've got quite a big problem. It can take quite a long time to connect it to the grid. Now, I note that part of the proposition is to have a separate organisation that looks at these things and cuts through some of the complexities. I think that that is quite right. But if you come back to your original point, offshore versus onshore, the answer is both. But onshore can only be where the communities are prepared to accept them. And I know that some of the wind generators have been suggesting that you put a package together in which a local community gets a reduction in its own electricity costs. That might be something that's got some legs as well. But what I'm not in favour of is imposing large onshore wind farms against local people's wishes.
OK. Well, I think if we could attach you to the national grid, Angela Knight, we could solve a lot of the problems.
Dynamo.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed for your analysis and your predictions, your suggestions there. A pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much indeed, Angela Knight.
Thank you.
Now, a quarter of...
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, a quarter of bus services in England have been scrapped in the last decade, according to new research by the Campaign for Better Transport.
Well, this week the government announced £1.2 billion in funding for local authorities, pledging to level up bus services outside of London. Many hope rural areas won't be forgotten, as our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has been finding out.
As the colour of spring crosses the Derbyshire Dales, a cascade of walkers follows in tow. Bob spent years rambling between his home in Matlock and the Peaks, but longer journeys need particular planning.
The first thing I have to think of is where are we going to park? Where I'm going to park, say, 13, 14 cars, but if people can go on buses, it takes the problem of finding a start point out to a degree, and also it takes out the problems to locals.
13 million people visit the Peak District each year. Most come by car, sometimes clogging narrow roads. There are buses, but few along scattered routes. Spence runs the local pub in Starkholmes, opposite the bus stop. It's rare he'll see one go past.
It's every 2 hours, so it's not always feasible for people to fit the, whatever they're going out for in with that, whether they've got appointments or anything, because they've got big waits or whatever. But as regards tourism and businesses, it doesn't really help it much.
Of course, bigger towns like Chesterfield do get more buses, but it still needs flexible services to run on-demand routes.
This is one of the buses we use, so if Mrs Smith wants to go to the shops but she's in a wheelchair, then we can take out some seats, we can clamp her in the back, and this is the space we use for all the shopping. For some of our passengers, we know it's the only time they get out all week, so it's really essential that we can keep these type of services running and develop them to serve more people who have those needs.
The government's investing billions of pounds in public transport, pledging to make it cheaper and greener. Early figures show Derbyshire will get £47 million as part of the bus service improvement plan. It had hoped for twice as much, and like many councils, must lower aspirations. The council says that the funding will encourage passengers onto buses and cars off of roads, while helping its approach to climate change. But with 1 in 4 bus routes disappearing over the last decade, the Campaign for Better Transport says the government needs more ambition and more money. Norman's a former Lib Dem minister.
This is a case where number 10, the Prime Minister in particular, has to, or should be, pulling together different departments and getting a coordinated voice out of government. He's not doing that, and therefore the Department of Transport effectively is pursuing one policy and the Treasury a different one.
Passenger numbers are still shy of pre-pandemic levels. The return to traveller peaks won't be a short trip. Will Hollis for GB News in the East Midlands.
Coming up to 7:15, headlines are these. Nuclear groups are welcoming the government's new energy strategy, describing it as a step change. EDF's chief executive says building more nuclear power plants will reduce Britain's dependence on overseas gas and keep energy prices stable. The Foreign Secretary has said the UK is banning all imports of Russian energy, sanctioning more banks and stepping up supply of weapons to Ukraine. Liz Truss is in Brussels meeting NATO today. She's expected to urge other foreign ministers to maintain their pressure on Moscow in the face of the Russian invasion on Ukraine. Labour has called on the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, to explain his wife's non-domiciled tax status. It follows reports by the Independent newspaper that the Chancellor's wife could have saved millions not paying UK tax on foreign income. Ashata Murty, believed to be worth billions, has defended her non-dom status.
Now, harsher sanctions have been issued by the US for recent killings of civilians in Ukraine. President Putin's daughters and Russia's largest bank were notably targeted. We're joined now by the author of Putin's War Against Ukraine, Revolution, Nationalism and Crime. His name is Taras Kuzyo. He's been on the show before. Very good morning and welcome back. Look, the front of the papers this morning showing pictures of President Putin with his children when they were small. They are, of course, now adults, and they are being targeted by this latest tranche of US sanctions, along with Sergei Lavrov's wife and children, and indeed the former president. This is really going to hurt his inner circle, isn't it?
Well, it's going to hurt, and they're going to take this very personally, of course, because this is seen as an attack on their families. I mean, there's always been the case that these oligarchs and and the people around President Putin have stolen billions inside Russia, and they've taken this to the West. You know, at the same time as they're unleashing a xenophobic and anti-Western campaigns in the Russian media, they love to live the high life in the West at the same time, in various palaces and, you know, really luxurious apartments in London, France, Austria, and elsewhere.
And do you think this works as a technique, as a strategy? Do you think that these people will be turning to Putin and saying, can you stop whatever's causing these problems for us? Or do you think it firms President Putin's resolution, perhaps, and his invasion of Ukraine?
I think that's a very difficult question to answer. I mean, whether these kinds of sanctions will stop Putin and make him withdraw is unlikely. At the same time, all of these now very tough for the first time, and these kind of sanctions were never implemented in 2014 when Russia first attacked Ukraine. Now we finally have these tough sanctions, and they will have, I mean, these take time, they will have a tremendous impact on Russia's economy, Russia's finances. So I think that what that will do is start to erode his support amongst the elites, because what these elites are in for is, like Putin, to steal. If that system of theft, of joint sort of, you know, living off the goodness of Russian resources now comes unstuck because of these Western tough sanctions, that is going to, I think, cause dissension amongst the people at the top, because their personal interests are going to be, as it were, undermined. There's no honor amongst thieves, as it were, amongst these crooks.
But Taras, I suppose that's the people at the top. What about the ordinary, and I say ordinary Russians, but I mean I'm referring to influencers, people in Russia who are still posting videos of them chopping up Chanel handbags in their rage as a symbol of their rage against the response from the West. I mean, he's still very much, understandably, I suppose, through the propaganda, got the support of ordinary Russians, hasn't he?
Well, there's always going to be, at the beginning of some war like this, a kind of a rallying around the flag. And there was an opinion poll about 3 or 4 days ago, a Russian opinion poll, from the last remaining independent polling organization in Russia, which found 81% of Russians support the war. 81%. That means young people as well. I'm a bit fed up of sort of liberals in the West telling me, this is Putin's war, it's not the war of the Russian people. That's not true. But that's now. It's a rallying around the flag at the beginning of the war. There are two factors that are going to impact upon that support. Firstly, the high number of casualties coming back. I mean, we're talking now nearly 20,000. These are all young people who have been killed in the war. And secondly, the impact of, the impact of those sanctions will also be have a big effect, in some ways even greater effect, on the average person in the street, because there's already rising unemployment. And so that kind of social contract that Putin has had for many years with the population, that I'm going to give you a high standard of living, you just don't get involved in politics, that was basically the agreement, is now becoming unstuck. So I think there is importance of problems for Putin down the road, but at the moment, yes, there is this rallying around the flag. I suspect that Chanel handbag probably was a fake anyway.
I think you're probably right. Taras, we have to leave it there. Taras Kuzio, author of Putin's War Against Ukraine. Really good to get you on. Thank you very much. We'll stay with us. Coming up in just a moment, we're taking a look at all of the top sports stories. That's after your Thursday forecast.
Hello, good morning. It's cold and it's windy out there first thing, and there'll be some hill snow in places as well, mainly northern Scotland. But through the day, actually, brightening skies will bring sunny spells for many as this area of low pressure moves into the North Sea. Now, as it moves away, it is bringing colder air southwards across the country, along with spells of rain, hill snow and showers. but the isobars will slowly start to spread out, and that means that the strongest winds that we've seen overnight will begin to moderate. Nevertheless, it's a windy day, and the hill snow that we're seeing across northern Scotland will push south, degenerate into an area of showers, and mainly the theme through the afternoon is for bright spells and showers. Rain and hail at lower levels, snow over hills, those showers edging further and further south through the day, but it's actually mainly dry and bright in the south. 12 Celsius in the south, 8 for Manchester, 8 for Newcastle, 6 to 7 for the Northern Isles. There'll be further showers coming through during Thursday night, but actually, as we go through the hours of darkness, increasingly the showers fewer and further between, with a better chance of clear spells, lighter winds, and as a result, a frost forming in many places, particularly for Northern Ireland, central, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, for example. I think in the far south, it'll turn cloudy and there could be a few spots of rain to wake up to during tomorrow morning. That rain will eventually pull away, allowing brighter skies, even some sunshine to develop quite widely across England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland keep the brisk wind from the north, stays cold, and as a result we'll see further wintry showers, particularly for northern Scotland. But away from the showers, actually for many it's a dry and bright day, plenty of sunshine eventually across most parts of England and Wales, but 10 degrees in the south, only 6 or 7 in the far north. So it's going to feel chilly, and with that chilly air in place, it's a frosty start for many of us on Saturday. But Saturday, with plenty of sunshine around, with lighter winds, despite the chill, will feel like a more pleasant day.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
We're here to discuss the big sports stories of the day, and in Manchester, reflected on the back page of the Manchester Evening News. Top 10 is the headline there, relating to Eric Ten Hag, the Ajax manager. They say Man United have got him in the bag, as you will see from the other headlines, very typical, the Express. Eric the Red, they're saying, while Ten Hag in the bag, he will pip Poch to hot seat at Old Trafford. That is all the talk, not confirmed. Let's go to Aidan McGee to see what he makes of all of this.
Yeah, you know, it started to drip out yesterday. I think he's been a name on the lips of most kind of casual observers and United fans in the last few weeks. We mentioned Pochettino's in the running. Thomas Tuchel not really attainable because of his commitment to Chelsea and all the strife that's happening there right now. And I think the club are probably happy for this drip feed to come out yesterday afternoon. The storm clouds have been gathering, haven't they, in the last month or so. People have been wondering whether there's direction under the current coach. It's all dependent on whether they appoint somebody else. That's part of his remit. And so I think they're happy to kind of allow this information to drip out. It looks as if he's going to get the job now. What do we know about him? He's 52 years old. He is insistent, apparently, that Steve McLaren comes with him to Manchester United as the coach.
In Holland
they were together. They had a very successful season together at FC 20 back in 2008-9. If you remember, McLaren had quite a bad time over here. He went from Middlesbrough to the England job and went to repair some of the reputational damage that had been done to his career by the England job by having this storming season in Holland and bringing an unfancied side into the title.
But he used to be Sir Alex Ferguson's assistant, of course.
Phenomenally successful.
Successful time. But, you know, I'm looking at everybody says another assistant, Sir Alex, Mike Phelan, will remain at the club as well.
No, not remain at the club, but I'm told that he won't stay at the club.
Well, I've got here will remain, but, but interesting. OK, yeah. Edwin van der Sar, of course, the chief executive of Ajax.
Yes.
Who may be, you know, heavily involved in all of this. But Ajax still have a title to fight for.
They do.
In Holland.
They do. So I think United, I mean, they've always said that the appointment wouldn't be until the summer. We're looking at probably until to be in place before the summer transfer window. And I think out of respect, they probably step back from what Ajax are doing now. They're locked in this battle with PSV towards getting the Eredivisie. My only concern would be there haven't been many precedents of Dutch coaches coming here and doing particularly well from that division. They've come via other countries, but they've not necessarily come from Holland to England to do well in the Premier League. So there's a bit to prove there, but maybe they need someone with a bit to prove. They've gone down the route of appointing really big names in the recent past. We've had Van Gaal in there, we've had Mourinho, even Solskjaer was a legend at the club. We've had people that people know about, that clubs know about. This one is a little bit unheralded. I think, you know, the coaches within England right now would know exactly who he is. He took Ajax to the Champions League semi-final in 2019. He's won 2 league titles as well. Maybe if you're cynical, you might look at that performance against Tottenham in 2019 and say, look, they had it in the bag. They were 1-0 up in the first leg at White Hart Lane. They then were 2-0 up until very late in the game in the second leg at the Ajax Arena, and they actually blew it. Lucas Moura got a hat-trick
United
and they
fans
lost.
will be asking, what has he won? What has he done? You could ask the same question about Maurizio Pochettino as well,
true.
but he will be one disappointed man.
Yeah, indeed. I
It's
just
not
don't
him.
think the structure suits Pochettino right now, and I do think that despite all he achieved at Tottenham and how he improved that club, the fact that he didn't win a cup, he didn't win a trophy, it still counts against him. Football is still, to Manchester United particularly, is about winning trophies, Eamonn. You know that better than anybody else.
Yeah, well, that hasn't happened in a while. Eric Ten Hag. I'd love to see a title, you know, Eric's 10-0 win, you know.
Yeah, well, don't worry, there'll be headlines there, don't worry about
that. Anyway, so he seems to be the favourite. He is the current Ajax coach there as well. So, Champions League stuff last night.
Yeah, huge
Chelsea, bad result at home, thumped by Real Madrid.
Yeah, and it was just another masterclass by Karim Benzema. I remember this is the guy who was happy to stand off Cristiano Ronaldo all those years at Real Madrid. He's very effective at what he did, still scored a lot of goals, and now at the age of 34 he's coming in to be the main man at a club like that. And it's probably a good time for him as well. He's had charges hanging over him as well, criminal charges that have been unproven obviously, but he's had that lurking over him in the background. But he's continued to score goals and he's really taken up the mantle in an unfancied Real Madrid side. Yes, they're doing well in Spain, but they weren't fancied to make any kind of impact in the latter stages of the Champions League. And he went there, he put them 2 goals up with 2 headers in the first half. Kai Havertz got a header of his own for Chelsea, and then Benzema finished it towards the end. And that means Chelsea are going to have to go to Spain next week, looking to, well, they're going to have to win by 3-0 because... Oh, no, actually, no, that's not true, because no away goals count at this stage of the competition, I believe. But they're going to have to win 2-0. It's going to be extremely hard to do. And I'm beginning to see now, you saw the result against Brentford on Saturday, is the maelstrom of everything that's going on at Chelsea, is it beginning to get into the dressing room now? Those defeats were really unexpected. The uncertainty of everything now between now and the end of the season with the ownership issue, is that beginning to infiltrate? And don't forget, players don't need much of an excuse to drop their level.
Okay, all to play for Villarreal, Bayern Munich, Villa winning 1-0. First leg, quarter-final tie.
That was an ex-Bournemouth player who scored that. Arnaud Dejumba didn't really get much of a chance at Bournemouth, and there he is, tear it up in the Champions League.
Okay, in the Premiership, Burnley, big win for them against Everton.
Yeah, they were losing as well against Everton to Richarlison penalties. Now, we spoke about this briefly yesterday. This was a real, that horrible cliche, six-pointer, but this was a real six-pointer here. I mean, this was two of the bottom four facing each other. Everton losing that game, that means there's 2 wins in 9 matches for Frank Lampard. He hasn't exactly gone into Goodison Park and waved a magic wand. They've got Manchester United on Saturday now. They blew a lead last night. Burnley overtook them. Burnley are playing Norwich on Saturday as well, away from home albeit, but they've still got a good chance, given the fixtures, to overtake Everton on Saturday. I think they're in deep, deep trouble. And I think Frank Lampard's gone in there, not necessarily knowing what the scale of the problem was. You saw end of last season, Ancelotti kind of could see the problems down the line. This is a club that's just spent and spent and spent and not really had a strategy behind what they're doing, and they're paying for it now. And that is a very big club. They've never been relegated from the top flight. I think it can happen this season, Eamonn, I really do.
Eamonn, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Just after 7:30.
Oh, stay with us. Sorry, we're going through the papers next with Liz Kershaw and Emma Kenny. A little bit of a delay caught me out there. We'll see you in a sec.
Wake up.
Wakey, wakey.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Okay, with the time at 7:34, let's bring you up to date on the headlines.
The Foreign Secretary has said Britain is banning all imports of Russian energy, sanctioning more banks and stepping up the supply of weapons to Ukraine. Liz Truss is in Brussels meeting NATO today. She's expected to urge other foreign ministers to maintain their pressure on Moscow in the face of the Russian invasion.
The Prime Minister has said it seems sensible that transgender women should not compete in female sports. Boris Johnson said they are complex issues that can't be solved with one swift, easy piece of legislation. His comments come as transgender cyclist Emily Bridges was prevented from riding in national championships last weekend.
Nuclear groups are welcoming the government's new energy strategy, which will be announced today. It's described as a step change. EDF's chief executive says building more nuclear power plants will reduce Britain's dependence on overseas gas and keep energy prices stable.
Having insomnia could increase the risk of type 2 diabetes, as insufficient sleep can cause higher blood sugar levels. A new study from Bristol Medical School suggests 27,000 UK adults could be free from the condition if their sleeping improved.
A search and rescue operation is underway for 2 British divers who went missing off the coast of a Malaysian island. The 46-year-old man and a 14-year-old boy were taking part in a training exercise. 2 other divers are also missing. One has reportedly been found. Last time round in the paper review we were talking about the best decade ever, and everybody has agreed with me. That's, well, there's only one person who's got in touch, so but it's that person.
100% of those in touch on the subject.
I agreed with you as well.
Good, good.
Yeah.
The $6 million man, Steve Austin. We have the power to rebuild him. We can make him faster, stronger, and something else which I can't remember. But anyway, and the Bionic Woman. Yeah. Ford Cortinas, Rally Choppers. Yeah, Gary Curry. Thank you, Gary, for that little trip down memory lane there.
Right, let's go through the papers. We are joined this morning again by the psychologist Emma Kenny and the broadcaster Liz Kershaw. Welcome back to both of you. Emma, you want to start with the front of The Guardian, and this is talking about more than 10% of residents in areas of the capital have held this non-dom status that the Chancellor's wife is being highlighted for today.
So shall we say tax efficiency for certain populations? And the reason that this is a big issue is obviously when you have multi-millionaires paying less tax as far as percentage-wise than people who are earning £30,000, that's what we're talking about. And I think the provoking of this anger is because people feel that the government and those who are inhabiting positions within the government are massively out of touch with what's happening right now in the UK, which is that people are desperately struggling. And is it fair that people are afforded these kind of tax breaks when realistically people are starving in the UK?
No laws have been broken, though.
No, I mean, that's the thing about laws, isn't it? It's a little bit like corporate fraud. They don't tend to go to prison, whereas if you shoplift 3 times at Tesco, you might find yourself incarcerated. The fact that it isn't something that's breaking the law to some degree doesn't mean it's, in my opinion, morally lawful. And I think that's a distinction that should be made. If common sense says, why should somebody on £30,000 a year pay in a higher bracket, so to speak, than multi-millionaires? It's just logic that that isn't fair.
Especially multi-millionaires married to the second most powerful man in the government, the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Billionaires, I believe.
Billionaires. I mean, how can you... Yes, a family, which has Indian family, and it was her father who set up this massive company, which has only just shut down its Russian office. Yes, her family's Indian, but she's married to the Chancellor of the Exchequer and lives in London and you know, England, and I don't honestly see how you can exploit this tax loophole with any conscience. If you live in it, you should invest in it.
Well, there's no consistency to tax rules, and, you know, to all the people out there...
We know that, don't we?
Well, we know that very well. I mean, I had a conversation yesterday about this, and, you know, the Inland Revenue is basically the Department of Thievery, and they will do that. If they can get away with it, they will do that. And you tell that to the people who are being persecuted for IR35. Suicides, the people who are on loan charges, and they are ruthlessly pursued for really no reason at all.
Agreed.
And then you get somebody like this. So it just is, it sort of is a bad taste it leaves in your mouth, really.
Well, with the IR35 and loan charge thing, that's when the tax laws were changed, and then retrospectively people are being hounded to death, literally.
Which for money they don't have.
It's like if I were to drive out of here today and do 40 miles an hour, so 30 miles an hour in the city centre, keeping within the speed limit, and then in 6 years' time somebody said, Liz, you were doing 30 miles an hour on Deansgate, we've now changed the speed limit on Deansgate to 20 miles an hour, so you owe us this in a fine. It literally is like that, and people, hard-working, self-employed people are dying because of it. Meanwhile, register yourself in a different country and live the life of Riley. Partly in Downing Street.
You were saying that you think this means that Rishi Sunak is politically toast. I mean, his ratings have just plummeted, haven't they? Popularity ratings with Joe Public, with Tories as well.
I think people are very wise and decent and full of common sense. And Emma and I were talking about this earlier. In broadcasting, people watch you or listen to you and suss out whether you are sincere about your speciality topic or you just want to be famous. You're a wannabe. You want the attention. And I said I saw his naked ambition, and I think he's coming a cropper, because I think people are wising up to it now with his photo opportunities and one rule for you and one rule for another. And I'll take away now 1.5% increase in national insurance, waving the carrot of, but before the next general election, I'm going to cut income tax by a penny. People aren't daft, are they? So no, I don't think Richie Sunak is a contender. And
Did you say Richie Sunak?
Richie Sunak, yeah. Richie Sunak is a contender anymore. I just don't think he's a threat to Boris Johnson for the top job, whatever his name is.
Yeah. Boris Johnson is the man that in the last election cut through the red wall. And now those constituents, those people who voted for him, that loaned him their vote, are asking questions. This is the Express page 2.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because if you're being hit hard financially by the very government you voted in, and you feel that there is a disparity between what you're enduring and what other people who are in more comfortable situations are enduring, you're going to question the whole reasoning behind why you voted. And I think right now, in homes all across Greater Manchester in the UK, in places like Sunderland, etc., these are places where, you know, everybody expected them to remain red, and then they turned, and the government should be embracing that new opportunity to engage with the working classes. But instead, it's going to be so challenging in the future that people are literally going to be choosing whether to heat the homes or whether to actually be able to eat. Yeah. And that's something that's being posed to these individuals, isn't it?
You see, you can understand these rows politically and just aesthetically that go on between number 10 and number 11, because Mr. Sunak had the opportunity last week of looking like he cared about these people, and the government had the chance of looking like that, you know, whether it was substantial or not. But the thing is, Emma, it looked like they didn't care about the cost of living crisis.
Even aside from if you think about working classes, think about SMEs. You know, 3 million people were excluded from any financial support whatsoever.
The self-employed again.
Literally, not a penny. They've lost their homes. We're looking at the biggest repossession crisis that we've known in decades. And the reality is, they're not people who have, you know, gone out of their way to buy excessive homes. These are individuals with large amounts of equity that are going to get repossessed because they've had their businesses crippled, their lives crippled. So I don't think they have cared at all about lots of people. To me, it just makes perfect sense that they don't care about the working classes who are struggling anyway. They didn't care about swathes of the population who haven't been able to look after their children, haven't been able to pay their mortgages, certainly haven't been able to keep their businesses going. So this is just more of the same.
The people who we should be a nation of entrepreneurs. It creates wealth. People who were self-employed at the start of the first lockdown and who lost all the work overnight and have since had to leave the industry that we're in. Their businesses have gone. You know, they are now, and I know people are on benefits and
using food banks.
70. So I was shocked. It's something like £340 a month, or £360 a month that you get in benefits if you've lost everything. Some of these people are finding it hard to get work because they can't have the confidence anymore to put themselves out there. So they're trying to survive on that, which is about £80 a week. And that's what I was asked the other day, to pay £75, I mentioned it earlier, to be in the same room as Richie Sunak, as we don't call him, for a dinner. I mean, are these people tone deaf completely? By the way, I was asked to be, if I'd like to be an MP this week, if I'd like to be a candidate.
Who are these invitations coming from? One asked.
Different directions, but I was told it's because we're looking for Northerners to sit in red wall seats. So you can only like Northerners if you're a Northerner.
Except the only thing I would say, Elizabeth, is that you say it straight, you tell the truth. you're a real person.
Not good in politics. Stay away.
That ain't gonna work.
I'd be in trouble straight away, wouldn't I?
When you would never be admitted to cabinet, you would never be admitted to the higher echelons. You would be looked upon as, you know, some freak in the back row that you know, creates troubles. I've spoken to many politicians over the years, and as soon as you break lines, you're out. Your history. You know, basically kiss ass is what it's all about.
We have some great parties at Checkers at the weekend.
We were talking about the government not caring. They are trying to tackle this cost of living strategy with this energy security, cost of living crisis with this energy security strategy. Daily Mirror covering this, page 12, Liz, talking about this plan to go offshore with these wind farms. What are they saying?
Yeah, we're going to stop. We had a guest on earlier. We're going to reverse our policy on shale. We're going to have new nuclear plants in 2050. Yeah. That's 28 years. What we're going to do till then? Burn twigs from the woods, gather twigs on our backs. We're going to have wind farms on land, but that's not popular. You know, people don't necessarily want that. Although I think some of them are majestic, and others are an intrusion. We are an island, so we've got the opportunities for offshore wind farms, tidal. Why have we not got the Severn Estuary tidal project in place yet? It's all reactive. Nobody's looked ahead to our energy needs. It's all been, you know, let's stop burning fossil fuels, but we haven't really provided ourselves with any alternatives. Scotland's introduced hydroelectric power. But we're not ready. We'll have to just go back. The plain truth is, unless we all start burning our furniture and wearing 10 layers in the house, we're going to have to go back to coal, we're going to have to go back to oil, and we're going to have to go back to North Sea gas as well, because we're just not energy secure. But like you say, they're not honest, are they?
They're not
being
honest. And, you know, the idea, the foreign secretaries in Brussels today saying, hey, why are we all dependent on Russian oil and gas?
Yeah.
Well, I suspect it's because of government policy, really. Right. That's why they're dependent on. And they try and pretend, well, we are leading the way. We're going to turn off the taps here and whatever. As you exactly say, what are we going to do? Burn twigs?
Well, it's like I said before, it's like if you go out for a meal and you're like, oh, I look after my body, I'm just going to have plant-based food tonight, and then somebody, your friend orders a burger and chips and you're leaning over and helping yourself, because if it's on somebody else's plate, it's not your fault. It's the same with energy. We'll close down our North Sea oil platforms and we'll ship in gas from Norway, and as long as we're not actually harvesting carbon and fossil fuels, well, we can say we're green.
Yeah, but we can take it in from Venezuela.
Exactly. We can go to all the bad boys of the world and we can buy it off them. And that's OK, because somebody said the other day, if this isn't sorted out, the main problem is going to be social unrest. Because if people find that they've lost their job because their factory hasn't got the gas or the coal or whatever to forge steel and make cars, they're going to find themselves sitting at home with no job, no income, cold, hungry because there are already shortages. I tried buying some sunflower oil the other day, but of course there's now a panic and the shelves are absolutely empty. There's already petrol because of these protesters, which isn't making the news, bit weird. There are people protesting at oil refineries around the country. I drove up yesterday, my local garage, I don't have diesel, but it was out of diesel. I had to queue for unleaded.
Sorry, I'm not aware of this. I'm not aware of this.
OK, right, so I put this out on Twitter. So I was coming up here, I tried to go get petrol. I had to queue for unleaded. Like, what the hell's going on? So the guy says, oh, we've completely run out of diesel. I thought, this is a bit bad. I'd forgotten that the day before I'd been to my local Tesco for shopping and seen that their petrol station was closed down. I thought they must have a technical problem. Driving up the motorway last night, big electronic signs, no diesel, no HGV fuel, so-and-so motorway services. So I sat here in bed last night and I put out, why have I seen this? And people all over the country were texting me, tweeting me and saying, it's the same where we are, Liz. There's no diesel. I couldn't get unleaded yesterday.
Why?
Because these protesters chaining themselves to railings and lorries at automotive fuel refineries around the country, and people were saying to me on Twitter, why isn't this being reported?
But why are they doing it now, just adding to the whole crisis?
Because they've got first world problem, middle class, retired people, and it's ban all oil or something is the protest, and they want to stop the use of oil. So they're stopping people going to work. I mean, I drove up in my car. Now I've mentioned this, I hope Stockport, you know, isn't going to be raided for petrol, else they'll never get home again.
Yeah, well.
But that people are aware of it, because I've got... I'll pass them on to your news team, because I've got 50 tweets now saying we're out of petrol, we're out of diesel where I am.
Okay, not that we want to create any shortage.
I don't want to create panic, but it's happening now. Yeah.
Okay. These two will be happening again in about 40 minutes' time. Emma, for the moment, Liz, thank you both very much indeed. Anything to say about what the guys are saying? Tweet us at GBNews.
OK, the time is just before 10 to 8. We'll bring you up to date with the headlines now. And the government, as we've been saying, is promising to take back control of energy costs, with plans to make 95% of electricity low carbon by 2030. Ministers say they'll make cleaner and more affordable energy by boosting wind, solar and hydrogen.
A security guard accused of spying for Russia at the British Embassy in Berlin will appear in court today. He's David Smith. He's charged with 9 offences under the Official Secrets Act. He was extradited to the UK from Germany yesterday, and he will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court.
Naval items worn by the Duke of Edinburgh will go on display for the first time on the first anniversary of his death this Saturday. It's part of an exhibition at Portsmouth Historic Dockyard looking at the Queen's close links to the Navy for her Platinum Jubilee. Items include Prince Philip's naval uniform and his Admiral's cap.
OK, so we're talking about an energy strategy from the government today, and Britain is going to massively scale up its use of nuclear power as part of that strategy.
Yeah, it's going to be launched a little bit later today, and we're expecting up to 8 new reactors to be perhaps discussed and built by the government in the next few years. Our reporter Amelia Harper has been looking at Sizewell B power station in Suffolk to see what the future is for nuclear energy.
Operating since 1955, Sizewell B supplies 3% of the UK's electricity, or enough to power 2.5 million homes in East Anglia. It's one of 8 nuclear power stations in the UK. Most of the existing reactors are due to reach the end of their lives and shut down before 2030, but more are being built. French energy company EDF is currently building Hinkley Point C power station in Somerset. It also plans to build another plant, Sizewell C, next to Sizewell B in Suffolk. It's been backed by £100 million of government funding. Robert Gunn is the station director at Sizewell B power station.
So at the moment, nuclear is just about 20% of the country's electricity, 24/7, 365 days of the year. But if you look forward, when we get the new power stations on, Hinkley C, Sizewell C, and here at Sizewell B can provide power for over 15 million homes, you know, a fantastic amount of energy for the country.
But not everyone is convinced about the future for nuclear, including local campaigner Alison Downs.
There are numerous future energy scenarios that do not include Sizewell C, and clearly solar, onshore wind, offshore wind, all of those can roll out faster and more cheaply than nuclear power. Our energy crisis is now, and we shouldn't be putting so much money into a technology that won't deliver for at least 15 years, by which time our energy landscape can be transformed by storage and energy efficiency. The Sizewell C project is risky, expensive and incredibly slow to build, and everyone in the country should be concerned about it, because they will all have to help pay for it, not just the people who live here.
Projects on the scale of Sizewell C take about a decade to go from concept to reality.
We've worked really hard with the local community to take on feedback, and that's actually helped us to shape the proposal, and based on that feedback there has been quite a number of large changes made to make the project as seamless as possible for the local community. On the other side of that though, there will literally be thousands, if not tens of thousands of jobs being created, and tens of millions of pounds being pumped into the local community, and indeed hundreds of millions into the UK economy.
Amid a cost of living crisis, the government is looking to other low-carbon energy sources. Nuclear is high on the agenda, but the build timescales mean it won't start making a difference for many years to come. Amelia Harper, GB News, Suffolk.
Well, stay with us. Lots more coming away this morning during breakfast. In the next hour and a half, we'll be joined by the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. He'll be in the studio just after 9 o'clock. But for now, let's take a look at the forecast.
Hello, good morning. It's cold and it's windy out there first thing, and there'll be some hill snow in places as well, mainly northern Scotland. But through the day, actually, brightening skies will bring sunny spells for many as this area of low pressure moves into the North Sea. Now, as it moves away, it is bringing colder air southwards across the country, along with spells of rain, hill snow and showers. But the isobars will slowly start to spread out, and that means that the strongest winds that we've seen overnight will begin to moderate. Nevertheless, it's a windy day, and the hill snow that we're seeing across northern Scotland will push south, degenerate into an area of showers, and mainly the theme through the afternoon is for bright spells and showers. Rain and hail at lower levels, snow over hills, those showers edging further and further south through the day, but it's actually mainly dry and bright in the south, 12 Celsius in the south, 8 for Manchester, 8 for Newcastle, 6 to 7 for the Northern Isles. There'll be further showers coming through during Thursday night, but actually, as we go through the hours of darkness, increasingly the showers become fewer and further between, with a better chance of clear spells, lighter winds, and as a result, a frost forming in many places, particularly for Northern Ireland, central, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, for example. I think in the far south, it'll turn cloudy and there could be a few spots of rain to wake up to during tomorrow morning. That rain will eventually pull away, allowing brighter skies, even some sunshine to develop quite widely across England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland keep the brisk wind from the north, stays cold, and as a result we'll see further wintry showers, particularly for northern Scotland. But away from the showers, actually for many it's a dry and bright day, plenty of sunshine eventually across most parts of England and Wales, but 10 degrees in the south, only 6 or 7 in the far north. So it's going to feel chilly, and with that chilly air in place, it's a frosty start for many of us on Saturday. But Saturday, with plenty of sunshine around, with lighter winds, despite the chill, will feel like a more pleasant day.
Tonight on GB News, at 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Prime Minister bets big on nuclear as the government's energy security strategy is published today.
Good morning. It's 8 o'clock on Thursday, the 7th of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Live, our last day broadcasting from Manchester, and here's what's leading the news this morning.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected to put nuclear at the heart of the UK's new energy strategy, which launches today. The government promises a major acceleration of homegrown power in a bid for energy independence.
Now, this comes as the Foreign Secretary arrives at the G7 meeting in Brussels. She wants to push for an accelerated timetable to end the West's dependence on Russian oil.
The US, the UK and the European Union have announced the harshest sanctions yet on Russia in the wake of those atrocities committed in Bucha. The sanctions targeted Russia's banks, with the US also hitting Putin's inner circle, including his adult daughters.
Well, coming up in 20 minutes' time here in the programme, we are broadcasting from Manchester. We will reflect things like Coronation Street with the Coronation Street legendary actor Charlie Lawson, also known as Jim McDonald, as in "It's Fiona I love." And he's made, you know, from Northern Ireland. He's come from Northern Ireland. He's made Manchester his home, and he is awfully enthusiastic about Manchester.
He is. And someone else who's awfully enthusiastic about Manchester is the Mayor of Greater Manchester. Andy Burnham himself will be joining us just after 9.
OK, so you've got a question for the Mayor. You've got a question for Jim McDonald, Charlie Lawson. Get in touch with us, and that's GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GBnews. It'll be good to hear from you. Well, the big story that will emanate this morning is that Boris Johnson will make nuclear the backbone of the UK's new energy strategy.
Yeah, that's to be published later today. We're expecting 8 new reactors to be planned in a bid to have 95% of Britain's energy come from domestic renewable sources by 2030.
Targets for onshore wind and solar power will also be raised. The strategy is being announced against a backdrop of soaring bills and prices and pressure to end the West's reliance on Russian oil and gas.
Well, according to Whitehall sources, rows over the strategy between Number 10, the Treasury and the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy were ongoing up until last night.
Labour has accused the Prime Minister of caving into his backbenchers, and they say that the strategy would do nothing to help millions of families facing an energy crisis.
Well, for more on this now, John Grant joins us. He's a senior lecturer in sustainable construction and climate science at Sheffield Hallam University. Very good morning to you. Thanks for coming in all the way from Sheffield this morning. We do appreciate it. Look, I've just seen Caroline Lucas from the Green Party tweeting this morning that these plans drawn up by the government is a criminally wasted opportunity, she says, in her view. Nuclear, she says, is far too costly, it's far too slow, and she says there's a giant hole at the heart of the plan where mass home insulation should be. #fail. Would you agree with her?
I totally agree with that. There's a huge opportunity for going to people's homes, and, you know, this is a strategy. It's like a long-term idea, and you can easily retrofit a house so that it will only cost you about £1.20 a day. It costs money, but that's an investment. So generally I hear people say, can we afford to do things like that? And the question is, you don't talk about afford when you're going to get that money back.
That's the thing, John. I think people can't envisage that. They can envisage power generation, make us more, get us more, we can consume more. What they find it harder to realise is that by insulating their homes, this is actually going to have the same effect, I suppose.
Well, even more so. I mean, because the cheapest energy is the energy you don't use. So if you're producing loads of energy from questionable nuclear sources, which may or may not come online when they
they're
promise,
too far away. That's the problem. Would you see a strategy street by street? Would you literally, you know, if you were central government, would you be saying, right, we're going to Main Street, whatever, and we're taking every building there and we're doing this? How do you actually, is this done itsy bitsy, you know, is it all over the place, or how would you have that insulation strategy?
Well, we know which houses are the easiest ones to do, and so we pick that 10% of 3 million houses, right? So we could take those 3 million houses and we immediately, almost like a Marshall Plan, almost going to war, we go to those easy to improve houses and learn.
What is an easy to improve house?
I mean, it's messy, horribly messy.
Yes, but if we pick the easy ones, we can clad them on the outside so that it's not inside, and you drop your energy consumption. And once you've done that, and it turns out there are a lot of houses out there that you can switch out their boilers for an electric heating system. Dare I say it, the heat pump idea. I know there's been a lot of debate about this, but when done well, for every unit of electricity you buy, you get 3 to 5 units of heat.
Isabel's right, John, in terms of, she said it's messy. It's not only messy, to physically do, but it's a messy-looking plan. One here, one there, one whatever. I mean, I'm a uniform person. I say, this street, then we move on to this street, then we move on to this street. What are these easy-to-insulate houses? What do they look like?
Well, they're probably the most recently completed houses.
Get out of it.
Yeah, because at the moment our houses are being built to a minimum standard, building regulations, which is way below.
I thought we were going to talk about Victorian and Edwardian
houses. Well, those are really hard because they're beautiful on the outside and they're quite challenging. So let's do the ones that are
already ugly. Oh no!
Well, is that not the place to learn? Your 1960s, 70s houses, the current housing stock, where these poor people have been kind of tricked into buying houses that don't perform.
But John, here's what I don't understand. When any developer is building a new house, surely it should be statutory, it should be mandatory that there's not roof tiles, there's a solar panel on the roof, for instance, or in the back garden.
Well, yeah, you'd think that. So you know that every house has a kind of a fridge rating, A to G, when you sell them. Do you know that only 1/10 of 1% of the houses out there are A? Are standard A.
Well,
and
how is it allowed? Then I can't stand seeing these ministers taking all the glory today. We have got a strategy. It'll take 180 years to do and whatever.
I was working out. And how old will you be by 2050?
I'll be dead. I'll be gone by that.
It's too far. It's not going to help the problem in the short term.
Most people don't realise, but in 2015, so that's 7 years ago, there was a strategy that the construction industry had taken on board, that we were going to build houses that cost a pittance to heat and power. But back then, the 2015, the current government decided it was just asking too much, and they shelved it. And all of that you were just talking about, Eamonn, was embodied in those new houses that were going to be built. And that would be 7 years now have been building those houses.
John, here's the answer. Let's just frack everywhere. Let's get round the whole fracking country and frack it to bits.
Well, maybe you realise, but on Monday, the United Nations stated that we are in a global emergency and we have to drop the amount of carbon that we're emitting. Absolutely.
All right, John. How is that of any comfort or any immediacy to anybody who can't pay their fuel bill this week?
Well, it should be explained to people that fracked gas is not going to reduce their bills. What's going to reduce their bills is improving their energy efficiency of their homes.
Why is fracked gas not going to improve their bills?
Because the gas that will be pumped out will be part of the global market of sales. And so, the companies pumping the gas, well, they're going to make quite a lot of money considering the current price of gas. But the individuals buying that gas, they're not going to buy it cheaply.
John, I'd also say this to you. People are frightened. One of the things they're frightened about is not only not being able to pay their bills, but energy security. They think Putin could make them freeze this winter.
Yeah, and that needs an immediate response, and it needs an emergency response that is financial rather than a knee-jerk reaction to pump more fossil fuels into a system that we're already tipping in a catastrophic level that in terms of locally, air quality, earthquakes, water quality. So the people around those fracked areas are far from perfect, but there is this wider issue that it's going to be the poor people again that are going to suffer from climate change, and it's the poor people again that are suffering from these higher bills. And there should be a plan that has it so that they're not going to be paying those higher bills in the future. And I can do that. I could do that. 23 years ago, I helped build a house that, when it was completed, cost no more to build than a standard house. It's 23 years ago, 30 quid a year.
Wow. In terms of energy costs?
Yeah.
What, in the UK?
In the UK.
Well,
just
you're
down the
wasted,
road.
mate. You're wasted. You are.
But
you're instead stuck as a nutty professor in Sheffield Hallam University. Then and what we need is to release you into the market,
into the
don't
wild.
we?
Well, people they look a bit odd. And when I've talked to people about that, surely, it doesn't matter that they look a bit odd if you're looking at. Let me tell you now. Currently, the people living in those houses, they've got electric cars, and so their bills are an enormous 250 to 300 quid a year now.
Wow.
Yeah?
Wow. I'd like to see, when you say these houses look odd, I'm sorry you haven't come with a sketch of one. I mean, how odd do they look?
Well, the facade, the front that faces the south, that's all glass.
All right.
And all the other side is covered in soil and insulation.
Gotcha, yeah. Okay.
So that
sort of thing you'd see in grand designs.
Yeah, something that you pay a lot of money for these days. Look, I just want to ask you if you think there is a silver lining to this cost of living crisis that we're facing, and bear with me on this. But whether or not people are going to realise that actually, by saving themselves expensive bills, by using less, we're actually helping the planet, and whether it's just a chance to reassess our own habits. I was just talking to the crew this morning about the air conditioning, for example, in this hotel. Most of the team were complaining that they couldn't get it warm enough. It was so cold. Why are we using air conditioning to turn our rooms freezing in Manchester, in the UK, when none of the people in there wanted it? We're just we're burning energy.
Yeah,
we could save the planet.
I couldn't agree with you more. That we're not in control of the environments we live in, that somebody else sort of chooses that.
Yeah.
And actually, we're designed to live, even though I know it's raining at the moment and it's dull and cold and everything, but the UK has a really pleasant environment.
Yeah.
It's rarely colder than 5 for more than a week.
Well,
5
see,
degrees.
we're in a building here where you can't open a single window, for instance.
That's a very good point.
I mean, there's so many things to this, and I just wonder, what is the main thing that holds us back? What is it? Is it a lack of imagination? Is it a lack of willpower? I mean, I don't stand. I look and you hear from Caroline Lucas from the Green Party and whatever, and I think, don't tell me what the problem is, Caroline. I know what the problem is. Give me the solution.
She's saying insulate, insulate, insulate.
Well, let's employ at least 1 million men and women to do what is a reasonably skilled job, but one that, when you invest in that, you get the money back.
Why are they not listening to you?
Because a certain number of very wealthy people are getting even more wealthy as they suck the life out of the poorer people of our society.
And those would be developers, energy companies, the usual suspects. Yeah, I find it the same with the food lobby as well. We're all being poisoned and we're blamed on it. But, the food lobby...
But the opportunities are there.
Yeah.
That's, and once people are aware, because when somebody looks at a new house, they kind of assume that house must be as good as it could be. Yeah, you look at it and you think that must be the best it can be.
But not necessarily so.
But it absolutely is not, and they fight us.
John Grant, you are an amazing guy to listen to. You've got
Those
great
plants
vision.
are something, to behold.
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
It's a bit of COVID madness there.
Do you not just want to sort of take him by the chin and just sort of...
I was going for Viking, but I ended up Santa, or Viking Santa, I'm not sure.
John Grant, is he a genius or is he a nutty professor from Sheffield Hallam University? Fascinating talking to you, John.
Real pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well, the time is coming up to 8:15. Here's the news that you're waking up to on this Thursday morning.
The Business Minister, Kwasi Kwarteng, says energy bills could start to fall within the next few years with the government's new energy strategy. It's as the cost of renewable resources fall.
The Foreign Secretary has said Britain is banning all imports of Russian energy. They will also sanction more banks and step up the supply of weapons to Ukraine. She's expected to urge other foreign ministers to maintain their pressure on Moscow in the face of Putin's invasion in Ukraine.
Labour has called on the Chancellor Rishi Sunak to explain his wife's non-domicile tax status. It follows reports in the papers today that the Chancellor's wife could have saved millions by not paying UK tax on foreign income. Akshata Murthy, believed to be worth billions, has defended her non-dom status.
Let's get up to date now with politics and Tom Harwood, because while the Prime Minister will announce that energy strategy today, the Foreign Secretary, as you've just heard there, will meet with foreign ministers in Brussels. Tom, what have you got to tell us?
Well, that's right, Eamonn. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is in Brussels today to meet with G7 foreign ministers. She's also talking with NATO as well and really pushing a new strategy when it comes to Russia. The United Kingdom has, of course, announced that it will be banning imports of Russian oil and Russian coal by next year. But many in the EU have not actually gone as far as the UK with regard to oil. The EU has announced it will ban Russian coal, but not Russian oil. To some extent, the job of Liz Truss today is to try and push the EU to go as far as the UK on Russian oil. Of course, it's a tougher job for the EU, to be fair, because many EU countries are more dependent on Russian energy than the UK is. But this is all part of a wider strategy, a long haul, as Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, put it yesterday, of how the West can deal with Russia. Indeed, Liz Truss has been talking about ending the age of engagement with Russia, moving back to something that more resembles Cold War diplomacy. Rather than treating them as an ally or someone that can be trusted, Liz Truss is saying that we need resilience, defence and deterrence to be our watchwords when dealing with Russia.
Tom, thank you very much indeed. With that, we will take a break, broadcasting live from Manchester all week. And when you associate Manchester, you associate with Coronation Street, and we'll have the legendary actor, the man who played Jim McDonald, Charlie Lawson, about his love of Manchester, coming up after the weather.
Hello, good morning. It's cold and it's windy out there first thing, and there'll be some hill snow in places as well, mainly northern Scotland. But through the day, actually, brightening skies will bring sunny spells for many as this area of low pressure moves into the North Sea. Now, as it moves away, it is bringing colder air southwards across the country, along with spells of rain, hill snow and showers. But the isobars will slowly start to spread out, and that means that the strongest winds that we've seen overnight will begin to moderate. Nevertheless, it's a windy day, and the hill snow that we're seeing across northern Scotland will push south, degenerate into an area of showers, and mainly the theme through the afternoon is for bright spells and showers. Rain and hail at lower levels, snow over hills, those showers edging further and further south through the day, but it's actually mainly dry and bright in the south, 12 Celsius in the south, 8 for Manchester, 8 for Newcastle, 6 to 7 for the Northern Isles. There'll be further showers coming through during Thursday night, but actually, as we go through the hours of darkness, increasingly the showers become fewer and further between, with a better chance of clear spells, lighter winds, and as a result, a frost forming in many places, particularly for Northern Ireland, central southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, for example. I think in the far south, it will turn cloudy and there could be a few spots of rain to wake up to during tomorrow morning. That rain will eventually pull away, allowing brighter skies, even some sunshine to develop quite widely across England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland keep the brisk wind from the north, stays cold, and as a result we'll see further wintry showers, particularly for northern Scotland. But away from the showers, actually for many it's a dry and bright day, plenty of sunshine eventually across most parts of England and Wales, but 10 degrees in the south, only 6 or 7 in the far north. So it's going to feel chilly, and with that chilly air in place, it's a frosty start for many of us on Saturday. But Saturday, with plenty of sunshine around, with lighter winds, despite the chill, will feel like a more pleasant day.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Please do stay with us because just some of the things we've got ahead for you today. Out and about with our reporter Bradley Harris. Now, what Bradley's doing today, he's down round the Canal in Manchester, and he's going to be on board a houseboat and talking about the life and the society that goes on there.
He has so much energy, doesn't he? He's like a little dynamo.
We say that because there's things we've got to do of an evening and he's always there.
That sounds really complicated. Anyway.
Social things.
Yeah, social things. We've had a very busy week. As someone else who's had a busy week, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, he's finding time for us. He's popping in here just after 9 o'clock. We're talking to him about travel chaos. Of course, Manchester Airport have had an absolute shocker. And whether or not he'll ever run as Labour leader.
Yeah, well, we see him back on the national political stage again. But the situation at Manchester Airport, like a few other airports around the country, I mean, they're talking... here's the Manchester Evening News today, and the headline says, now police offer to help besieged airport chiefs. So this is basically to keep things in order, to make sure people aren't panicking, to get people through security and whatever. So it's pretty bad there, and if you are travelling over the Easter period, we wish you well.
And remember, we always want to hear your thoughts, any thoughts for Andy Burnham in particular or anything else. Let us know, GBViews at gbnews.uk or tweet us at GBViews.
Well, so here we are. We've spent the week, and when you think of Manchester, you think, of course, of United, you think of City, you think of Coronation Street. And Coronation Street and I are the same age. Yeah.
We must be very young.
No, it's 60 years of age, right? And so this has been the home to that much loved soap, and joining us in the studio, former Corrie actor Charlie Lawson, and he made his name as...
Well, the notorious Jim McDonald, who could always be relied upon to wind up his ex-wife Liz. So who could forget this famous moment when they were reunited in prison?
In prison?
Do you want to find a better man than me? Well, granted, you'll not be struggling there. You want to find someone better looking than me, but... Cast your eye around here, you'll find one in here. Someone who loves you like I did, Elizabeth.
This is none of your business.
Someone that, despite all his faults, never, ever let you feel that you weren't loved.
Well, you know, the thing I notice, the thing I take away about that, Charles, is that Liz is very mank, and you're unapologetically very Northern Irish in this for a Northwestern soap.
Yeah, I mean, bless the writers. They came for me, Eamonn, in about 1987, and I was actually with the English Shakespeare Company in Canada, I think it was. And also in those days, people were very po-faced about soaps. And I was too. I just said, no, I'm not interested. Why would I go to Manchester and do a thing that I know nothing about? So, and then they came again in 1989, just as I'd got a major role in the bill. So it was one of those things that happens very seldom in your career. So I had a choice between coming up here and doing Corrie or going down to London and doing the bill. And I'd been in Manchester doing Crown Court. You might remember that. You won't, but you were. Yeah, but in 1982, and I rather liked it, and I liked the wages, and I liked everything that was going on at Granada. It was stuffed full of actors.
Yeah.
The city was stuffed full of sport and all the rest of the stuff. And so I came to Manchester and been here since, although I live about 20 miles that way now.
Yeah, but it's all Greater Manchester.
Yeah.
And the other analogy I wanted to make was between Jim McDonald and yourself is that Manchester traditionally, and I think of, you know, somebody like George Best who led the way from Northern Ireland to here, there's been a mass exodus. It always has been a home for Northern Irish people.
Norman, Sammy McElroy, you know, quite a few Reds over the years. But I think you remember, Eamonn, in the bad old days when we had nothing but grey news and desperate news and all this. Look, the ferries and the planes were stuffed at the weekends coming over here to watch football.
The first time I came to Manchester, I was arrested and detained under the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
I can understand why.
That's my boy.
Yeah, it's because when we arrived at Liverpool in the ferry, my father hadn't got any identification. He hadn't got a driving licence or a passport. We didn't realise why you would have needed one, and we were detained by the special branch for that. So it was welcome to England.
Welcome to
really.
Whiteside and I got detained at the airport one day, but that was for a totally different reason. But sorry, carry on.
Well, I was going to say, there's this big Northern Irish community then here, but are you still doing that to and fro quite a lot, back to and doing lots of work in Northern Ireland as well?
I do. I've just finished filming a new series over there. Unfortunately, Mr. Burnham having to travel through Manchester Airport, which was a nightmare.
Was it? Could you explain to us why?
Well, there weren't enough staff.
Right.
Clearly, you go through security, and you know, I'm very lucky. I get priority pass like yourself or whatever. But the queues next to us were huge, and there simply weren't enough people to go through. So you can look all the way down, and the first 4 lanes going through the X-ray machines are there, and the rest are empty.
Right. Right.
So, but yeah, the answer is I go back a lot, but Manchester has a way of welcoming you, and when you're lucky enough to do Corrie, the thing about this city is you might be a red or a blue or whatever, but they love you. And it wasn't uncommon for us to be out downstairs or somewhere around the town with maybe Brian Robson, Paul Ince, Man United players, City players, Take That or whatever. And there was no kind of, oh my God, that's so-and-so, because we were all in this city together, and it's very tight. And so people people would fall over. They'd go into somewhere and there'd be someone from Take That. There'd be me. There'd be Phil Middlemas. There'd be Sarah Lancashire. Whatever, all having a beer. And in the next corner there'd be the City players or whatever. But Manchester always embraces all that. There's no one side. There's no one thing that is more special. They're very keen on their own, which I've always, like Belfast. It's always drawn me back here. And of course, in those days, Granada was rammed full of actors. We had a building down there, not far from here. It's been knocked down now, but it had a club bar in it, the Stables Bar, you remember, and the Film Exchange and all this. And it was Granada were making huge amount of dramas. So there were actors everywhere. Slowly over the years, that kind of changed, as all our industry has changed, and eventually there was only us left there, and then we moved over there to Salford.
I can't begin to tell you, when I came here in 1986 to live, it was everything as Charlie describes there. There were stars because there were dramas being made all the time. There were football players
just
everywhere.
falling over each other.
The BBC on Oxford Road existed there, and they made all the sports programmes, all the entertainment programmes. It was amazing, not even counting Granada. It just felt it was happening. It was happening, and it continues to happen.
And does that pull you back then? Do you think that Corrie's cobbled streets could see you back in there?
Well, look, Ian's one of the few producers in our industry who actually bothers, as you know, what to talk to actors that aren't in the show, and I speak to Ian once a year. We had a chat about a month ago, and before a long-term story conference. He understands, and I understand, that the character I have, specifically nowadays, what's happened in the last 3 years with wokery and all the rest of the stuff. Well, whether
Jim wasn't the most politically correct
he wouldn't
guy.
have been the most PC man in the world. So I get that. So where are you going to put him? What's going to happen? But he still has Steve there. So that's an obvious end. So we shall see. I'm the most returned character
Are you?
Played by the same actor in the history of British
How many
soaps.
times?
9.
Wow, 9 comebacks.
I left permanently in 2001, and the last time I was there was 2018. So who knows?
But tell me this. Also, I mean, I know you're more in a rural area now, and this is the lovely thing about Manchester. And when we take in Cheshire and Greater Manchester, there's a lot of greenery as well. So just, you know, what, 25 minutes or so away from here?
25 minutes through the rain over that way. There's
different world.
Prestbury and where I live and
Alderley Edge.
Alderley Edge, yes, Alderley Edge. We all know. I love people from Alderley Edge. There are a few orange people in Alderley Edge, but they're very beautiful.
They're very beautiful,
and they're great fun too. All the girls.
Well, lovely seeing you, Charlie. Thanks for giving us a flavour and a taste of Manchester. Thank you very much indeed. The actor Charles Lawson.
Stay with us. We're going to have a quick break, and after that we're going to go through the papers. Today we're joined by Emma Kenny and Liz Kershaw. We'll see you in a moment.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Right, time to bring you up to date news-wise. This is what we've got for you. The Foreign Secretary has said Britain is banning all imports of Russian energy, sanctioning more banks and stepping up supply of weapons to Ukraine. She's expected to urge G7 foreign ministers to maintain their pressure on Moscow in the face of the invasion on Ukraine.
The Business Minister, Kwasi Kwarteng, says energy bills could start to fall within the next few years with the government's new energy strategy. It's as the cost of renewable resources falls.
The Prime Minister said it seems sensible that transgender women should not compete in female sports. Boris Johnson says there are complex issues that can't be solved with one swift, easy piece of legislation. His comments come as transgender cyclist Emily Bridges was prevented from riding in the national championships last weekend.
Search and rescue operations reportedly underway for 2 British divers who went missing off the coast of a Malaysian island. The 46-year-old man and 14-year-old boy were taking part in a training exercise. 2 other divers were also missing, but one has now reportedly been found.
We're having a lovely natter through the newspapers in the company of Emma Kenny. Emma is a well-known psychologist. You'll know her from various programmes on TV, and you'll know her from everything else, especially the radio. Liz Kershaw Very good to have you both here today. And we're enjoying sort of bathing in the northwest atmosphere with Charlie Lawson there, who's an import, obviously, to the area. And we'll continue that chat with you two as well. We'll go to The Guardian, first of all. This is page 8. Conservative MPs say the fight is still on to extend a ban on conversion therapy. First of all, Emma, explain to people what conversion therapy is.
So conversion therapy really started in the church with the idea that if you were an individual who felt that you were gay and you didn't feel comfortable with that, you would go through courses of therapy that would challenge that and hopefully make you straight, which is obviously not necessarily very healthy for people who are LGBT. The issue, I suppose, with this one not extending to transgender populations, whilst that might on one level seem punitive, I think there is a degree, therapeutically, of some fear about just affirming somebody's position. And the reason for that is if you come into therapy and you have particular ideas about your world and your life, they might not always be the best for you in the long term. So the idea that if somebody comes in, say a teenager, and says, I don't feel that I'm in the right body, if I'm just to affirm that and not explore that a little bit more deeply, such as, have there been abuse, has there been trauma, is there some issues with their self-esteem, and explore that before getting to the point where they go, actually, no, this is dysphoria and this is something really serious and that individual needs to make a transition, then I think I'm failing therapeutically with respect. So I think that's where there is this problem area. It's a grey area, which is people who are struggling sometimes need to have conversations about those struggles, and that's why they've maybe not pushed that fully and exploring conversion on that level in a different context. Don't get me wrong, the idea that somebody would come in and have dysphoria and want to transition and then be told, well, there is this course where we can basically make you feel terrible about the way that you feel and guilty to a point where you're so shamed you will never allow yourself to live your true self and your authentic self, that's reprehensible, and it's right that that should never be part of our world in the UK. Equally, if you're an adult and you want to explore your sexuality safely in therapy, well, that should in itself be very much encouraged as far as I'm concerned.
OK, we now move to the front page of the Manchester Evening News. Liz, you've picked this one out. It's the troubles that are going on at the airport here. Police offering to help a besieged airport, as they talk about it. I don't know if you heard Charlie Lawson explaining his trip just from Belfast through Manchester Airport. Queues everywhere.
Yeah, the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, said, oh, well, we'll get the local police, Greater Manchester Police, to help. People were saying, well, local people were saying, well, we haven't got enough police anyway. How can you take them off the streets to do baggage handling or security checks or something? But the paper is saying the authorities are reassuring everybody that you won't get policemen doing that. It's basically crowd control and communication to people who are, you know, dropping in the queue or just getting worked up because they just simply don't know what's going on. We know why this is happening. It's because of staff shortages, because whilst flights were suspended during lockdown, people were forced to find work in other industries, and so there's a huge recruitment issue now. Why is it particularly bad at Manchester Airport? I don't have the answer to that.
Airports. I mean, Manchester's one of the worst, or perhaps the worst.
Yeah.
A few others are struggling. But if you look over to, say, Barcelona, I was reading Reykjavik in Iceland, these airports are all operating fine. So why have we had a particular issue with staffing and reacting to demand and coming back to life after the pandemic?
There's so many issues, not just with airport staff, but with border control staff as well. There are so few people. Why do the e-passport gates not open? Why are they not working? It's just a shambles. Apart from anything else, I would like to speak nostalgically about Manchester Airport and harking back again, Eamonn, to your favourite decade, the 1970s.
When it was called Ringway.
It was Ringway.
Is this when it was a farm?
It was a farm. It was a dairy farm, most of it.
But then our neighbours in Rochdale were, they both worked in the cotton mill. They were like supervisors, and they had foreign holidays from, you know, the 60s onwards, before we did. And we used to take them to the airport to go to some exotic location for their holidays, like Yugoslavia or Bulgaria. And on those occasions, and also just for a run out on a Sunday.
Yeah.
We'd go to Ringway.
That was a day out, wasn't it?
It was a day out, and it was Manchester Airport Ringway was this huge hall, all marble, with this contemporary, like 1960s massive chandelier. It was superb. You'd have your lunch, you'd go and stand on the balcony and watch the planes taking a viewing balcony. And I don't know what they've done to Manchester Airport, but last time I went, they'd butchered it. I felt I was in a rat run, porter cabins, little corridors connecting everything, up crammed in, no sense of space, no windows, what have they done to... So I said to the boss of Manchester Airport, I interviewed him on the radio, where's the chandelier? Oh, that's been packed into storage or something. You know, it's just a backward step. I'm interested that I didn't know that councils like Rochdale, Bury, Oldham, within Greater Manchester, there's like 10 of them are the main, the owners of Manchester Airport, Manchester City Council itself being the biggest. And I don't know who actually runs it on a day-to-day basis.
All I know is, wherever you go, certainly throughout Europe, including the UK, they all look the same, or most of them look the same. And those, what are they called, duty-free areas, I don't think I've ever bought anything in my life. I just think I'm deflected, I want to get to that gate over there, and I've got to do this windy, follow the yellow brick road through all this duty-free that I don't want anyway. I mean, I can't carry the bags that I've got. Why would I want to put more stuff in the bags to do that?
People like cheap things. That's why.
Not cheap anymore.
No, I know, it's a con,
And they're all the same. They're all absolutely the same. There's no difference with the Belfast one, the Glasgow one, the Manchester one. It's all the same stuff.
They even have it when you're returning home now, you get off the plane, you collect your bags, you go through customs, and then they say, in case you forgot, and there's another duty-free area there as well.
Emma, let's have a look at The Sun. We had Sajid Javid on the show yesterday morning, the Health Secretary. They're taking a look at this on page 2 in The Sun, talking about how it's immoral not to pay for the NHS, but no one's questioning paying for the NHS, it's just the means by which they're choosing to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a thing to say that, you know, it's immoral for us not to have our taxes raised. And I'm not sure that if you put that out to the public vote, everybody would be like, I do feel highly immoral not having them raised, you know? And I think it also is something that feels really unfair right now when people are struggling. And I think that just, again, what is it about using the NHS to batter ordinary people who often at the moment aren't even feeling that they can use it because there are such waiting lists or they can't get in for appointments with their GPs? The idea that we're now being told, and on top of that, you're going to have to pay more for it, and if you don't feel grateful, and this is a big thing, if you don't feel grateful, you're a terrible person. Because that's what the language is. You are immoral if you do not agree to these. It might mean that you can't heat your home, your elderly, you know, relatively may die because of that, because we see that every single winter, and you won't be able to feed your kids. But you know what, if you complain about that and you have a big problem, I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of working with people from areas which are very deprived, and I have the great fortune of still doing that and seeing their pain, and then they read things like this, that a man who doesn't know what it's like to be hungry and certainly doesn't know what a problem would be to heat his home is lecturing the UK further on how they should act after years of us acting according to every single thing that they suggested we should do.
Not that the tax departments are immoral in any way, of course.
Well, exactly. I mean, and that's another whole thing that you were saying earlier on. You're absolutely right. I mean, there is no morality there at all.
In Sajid Javid's defence, he is the son of a bus driver, and this wasn't actually his policy. It's, you know, it's Rishi Sunak's, isn't it? He
said the words. He said the words. He had the quote.
He's got to sell it.
Now, this is... I mean, you just couldn't make this up, could you? This is pettiness and... just awful. Anyway, the Grand National, which takes place on Saturday, in my view, the greatest sporting event of the year, ahead of Wimbledon, the Open, anything else. I think it is absolutely incredible. It has its critics, of course, but... we do a sweepstake. I bet usually once a year, and this is it, right? This is it. Tell us about doing the sweepstake for the National.
Yeah, I'll be putting a bet on Saturday, the only time of the year I put a bet on. And I just pick somebody, you know, usually with a pink top on, the jockey. You know, it's that scientific. But, yeah, if there's an office sweep going round, you'd always have a go, wouldn't you? That's OK if you are physically in the office with your colleagues, so we could do that today, right now, but if you are working from home, hybrid working as they now call it, and you take part in this sweep, say, yeah, I'll have a ticket, you know, I'm 60 miles away, but put me in for that, and then they say, oh, your horse is, then you're breaking the law because you have to be physically together to take part in a sweepstake.
What's the reason for that law? Why
I don't know why, it doesn't say in the article why it was introduced, but that is the law, and it's not caught up with the fact that
it's a clown world, that's why.
It's crazy.
Right now, that's
it's not caught up with the fact that people are now, A, working, but remotely, and also that, you know, there are all these online gambling casinos and stuff, so they can go ahead because the revenue is taking money from that. But if you have a little sweepstake among yourselves where there's no big business involved and the Treasury doesn't get anything, you actually, you know, could get a tap on the shoulder. It's a fair cop. Don't. I'm going to do it.
The runners and riders are published in a few of the newspapers today as well. As a matter of fact, Manchester Evening News has it, and the Mirror have a whole big runners and riders.
Do you take any notice of that? Well. Do you actually study the form?
Oh, I wouldn't understand the form. Just the same as you, I would use the same science with that, who you like, who you don't like sort of thing with that. But when I worked as a sports reporter here for BBC Northwest, I was assigned once to stand by Beecher's Brook when it was really big for the radio to talk about what was happening as it came over. When those horses came over that fence, it's like, it was surreal. It was like an out-of-body experience. It must be like when you were facing cavalry in the Middle Ages or whatever. It was, I know a lot of people don't agree with it, but it was magnificent in its majesty. It just was incredible to see 42 horses.
Feel the ground thundering.
You do,
yeah.
And it's the noise.
Yeah, and the crowd's getting
horses.
really excited.
Yeah.
I do love it as well.
So that was incredible.
If we've got time to quickly have a look at this Ed Sheeran court case, let's do it. This is in the Telegraph, page 9. He's come out and done this video saying that nobody wins in these kind of court cases, even though he did win. But saying these claims have to end. There's only something like 12 notes.
Yeah, it is right. I'd look at the piano and count up. It's absolutely right. It's 12 notes. There's 8 sets of them. But I've been saying for ages, there's only so many, and this is what he's saying, there's only so many. After 60 years of the charts, you know, what we now call pop, there's only certain combinations. And throughout my life playing records on the radio, I've had to either got in trouble or had to bite my tongue or qualify it, because you get a record and you can't help it. You know, if you've been enjoying pop since the 50s, you go, well, 60s, you go, oh, that reminds me of. Now, that's all right, but if you say, oh, that bit's from there, or that bit's just like that. And I have lots of friends who make music, and I'd say, ooh, do you think that sounds a bit like... What do you think? And everybody's really cautious now. And what Ed Sheeran's saying is that it's so much easier, it's a temptation for people like himself. They get one of these claims coming in and they just pay it off because it takes so much time and money to defend. So now people have got aware of that, and there's a little industry going on. I'll sue this really successful musician, make a few bob, because he won't contend it, she won't contest it. But yeah, I mean, there's so many. We even did a feature back in the day on Radio 1, me and Bruno, where you play 2 songs and say, can you hear the similarity? We do it all. We all do it, don't we?
Yeah, and, you know, when you've got a limited number of notes, and as you say, only a number of, what is it, keys in the scale, then it's going to happen. It's just, whether it's design or accident, it's just an inevitability. It was quite personal in that statement, wasn't he? Saying, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son, this has been really hard for me, I'm not just a corporation, I'm an individual. I wonder if that will get... Although the person who took the claim out against him said this isn't the end of it, hasn't he? Which is quite ominous.
Yeah, he's very determined, isn't he? And when you hear the
must be really upsetting if you genuinely feel that there has been something taken. I'm not saying for 1 minute that's the case, but that's the issue about litigation and all of these areas. It's so expensive that you've got to look at, well, really, maybe that's the issue. Maybe it shouldn't be so astronomically expensive that an ordinary person can't challenge these kind of things. And as it's said, he won, and it's great that he won, but I don't think we should feel too sorry for Ed. I think he's done very well.
Thank you. As have you two done very well. Emma Kenny and Liz Kershaw, really enjoyed your take, your look through on the papers today. Thank you very much, Steed, for joining us in your home area.
Yeah, thanks for getting me home.
We've had a fantastic week here in Manchester, and of course it's not only renowned for its first ever railway line, but also it is of course the birthplace of the Canal, making the city a pioneering force in transportation.
Right, well, Bradley Harris, our reporter, he's a bit of a pioneering force himself, and what he's doing is trying out... So, Bradley, these are city centre cruises. Now, a lot of people will not know such a thing exists in Manchester.
Yeah, well, the canals, I'd say, are not only the birthplace of Manchester, but the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. Wherever you look in Greater Manchester, you are surrounded by water in some form. So, you know, we've got to come and check out the companies who are going along and cruising along these canals. We're actually on a very famous canal, and we'll get into that in a moment, because I want to bring in Eamonn Gal. Eamonn, you run city centre cruises. The canals are so important to Manchester, aren't they? Why is this particular one that we're sitting on a famous one?
This is famous, Brad. Welcome aboard, first of all.
Thank you very much.
OK, thank you. This was the first canal built in the country. Started in 1759, when the first Act of Parliament came through. And it was to carry the Duke's coal from Worsley. That's where he lived. That's where the coal mines were. And they brought the coal into Manchester. It came around because they were having trouble getting water out of the mines, and they decided to build underground canals, and then they thought it was logical to bring a canal into Manchester. And this was the start of the Industrial Revolution.
Wow, so this was the very first canal built and created in Britain, and it started in Manchester. It's quite interesting because this is a 14-foot wide canal, but I know that because I have a personal interest in canal boats myself, so I know a few facts already, and that's how wide these canals are. Just tell me, you've got a cruise that you've got today. What routes do you go along? Do you go along the Manchester Ship Canal, for example?
Yes, today we've got a lunch cruise. We start here in Castlefield on the Bridgewater Canal, and we go out to Pomona. And at Pomona there's a lock there that takes us down onto the Manchester Ship Canal, and then we go down to Media City area, Salford Quays, have a look around there, do a bit of commentary while they're dining, and then we return back to Castlefield 2.5 hours later.
Amazing. Now, for those that don't know, Media City UK is a media hub. Loads of big media organisations, restaurants, shops. You go and take a wander down there and a tour around there. Now, I should say, our presenter Eamonn Holmes, big Man United fan. Around there's also Old Trafford. Do you take any football fans there on match days via canal boat?
We've been doing that for over 20 years.
Have you actually?
We have, really. And it's one of the best ways to get down to the stadium. So again, we start in Castlefield. We don't go through the lock on that one. We go stay on the Bridgewater Canal. And the back of the stadium is the Bridgewater Canal. So we stop underneath St Mackbulsby Way. It takes about 35 minutes to get there. No traffic, no parking problems. There's a pedestrian gate that we go into the stadium, and then 20 minutes after the final whistle, back here into Castlefield. And the bonus is you can have a beer on the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you can actually go and see a game by boat. Tell me, though, if they win or lose, what's the vibe like on the boat back?
Well, if they win, of course, it's a much better feeling. And we've not had that feeling for a couple of years now. But I have to say, the European nights are absolutely brilliant. You get a real buzz, yeah. And we do a bit of food before we go down there, and I tailor it to whichever country we're playing. So if it's a Spanish team, we did tapas this year. So, yeah, different food.
And it's not just this boat you own, you've got some others as well, but this one, we're on this one in particular because... Fill me in. This
boat we've had now for just over 12 years, and we named her Emmeline Pankhurst, of course, the leader of the suffragettes. She was a lady born in Moss Side, Manchester, and she led to the women's right to vote. And when we got the boat, we were thinking of a good name, an apt name. Our other boat is L.S. Lowry, of course, the famous painter. So both are famous people, yeah.
Two amazing symbols of Manchester. Really good to chat to you, Eamonn. I'll let you get ready because you've got a big cruise ahead.
We have, yeah.
Who knows, I actually lived near Salford, so maybe you could take me back home after this.
Okay.
Incredible to find out a little bit of history about the canals that, like I say, are the birthplace of not just the Industrial Revolution, but Manchester itself.
It is a big thing, Bradley. I mean, that canal is a long way, and that stretches, what, the whole way to Liverpool?
Well, did you know, Eamonn, you can actually still get a canal boat from here and go all the way down to London. It'll take you about 3 weeks, a few stop-offs at a pub along the way, but you can still do it. You can still get to London by canal boat.
Oh, brilliant. It's a good job you've now been made national correspondent based in Manchester, and you won't have to worry about that. So we might be 3 weeks. We might be on TV for a while. Yeah, might slow boat. Very good. But lovely to see. Thanks, Bradley. And Bradley, thanks for everything this week, mate. You've been a great tour guide.
Pleasure. Thanks a lot, guys.
Loads of you responding to Charlie Lawson's interview, talking about Corrie earlier. John Yardley's got in touch saying, I absolutely love Corrie. What a pleasure to see the wonderful Charlie Lawson back on the screen. Loved hearing you all exchanging stories.
Up next on the programme, our special guest is the Mayor of Greater Manchester. He is Andy Burnham. Looking forward to talking to him and introducing you to more of what this area has to offer right after this.
Hello, good morning. It's cold and it's windy out there first thing, and there'll be some hill snow in places as well, mainly northern Scotland. But through the day, actually, brightening skies will bring sunny spells for many as this area of low pressure moves into the North Sea. Now, as it moves away, it is bringing colder air southwards across the country, along with spells of rain, hill snow and showers. But the isobars will slowly start to spread out, and that means that the strongest winds that we've seen overnight will begin to moderate. Nevertheless, it's a windy day, and the hill snow that we're seeing across northern Scotland will push south, degenerate into an area of showers, and mainly the theme through the afternoon is for bright spells and showers. Rain and hail at lower levels, snow over hills, those showers edging further and further south through the day, but it's actually mainly dry and bright in the south, 12 Celsius in the south, 8 for Manchester, 8 for Newcastle, 6 to 7 for the Northern Isles. There'll be further showers coming through during Thursday night, but actually, as we go through the hours of darkness, increasingly the showers become fewer and further between, with a better chance of clear spells, lighter winds, and as a result, a frost forming in many places, particularly for Northern Ireland, central, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, for example. I think in the far south, it will turn cloudy and there could be a few spots of rain to wake up to during tomorrow morning. That rain will eventually pull away, allowing brighter skies, even some sunshine to develop quite widely across England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland keep the brisk wind from the north, stays cold, and as a result we'll see further wintry showers, particularly for northern Scotland. But away from the showers, actually for many it's a dry and bright day, plenty of sunshine eventually across most parts of England and Wales, but 10 degrees in the south, only 6 or 7 in the far north. So it's going to feel chilly, and with that chilly air in place, it's a frosty start for many of us on Saturday. But Saturday, with plenty of sunshine around, with lighter winds, despite the chill, will feel like a more pleasant day.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Boris Johnson will make nuclear power the backbone of the UK's new energy strategy, which will be announced today.
Very good morning to you. Up to 8 new reactors are planned. This is a bid to have 95% of our energy come from domestic renewable sources by 2030.
A very good morning. It is 9 o'clock. You're watching Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. We've had a fabulous week here in Manchester. This is our last show of the week and our last 30 minutes of that show. Let us know your views. We've got lots of them coming in. We've got Andy Burnham coming up next in the programme and we'll read out some of those best ones. You can get in touch on email, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
So there we are. It's a bit of a dusky day today, low cloud all around, but what you would see in Manchester from 25, 30 years ago is a completely transformed skyline, skyscrapers everywhere around the city, building going on. It's always a good sign for the economy if you see cranes on the skyline, and there are a lot of cranes around here as well, it has to be said. So just in the past 20 years, the population of the city itself has doubled, and this week we've given you an insight into what makes Manchester tick. So Boris Johnson will make nuclear power the backbone of Britain's new energy strategy, and that's going to be published today.
Yes, so as we were saying, up to 8 new reactors are planned in a bid to have 95% of Britain's energy come from domestic renewable sources by 2030.
Targets for onshore wind and solar power will also be raised.
The strategy is being announced against the backdrop, of course, of soaring energy bills and pressure to end the West's reliance on Russian oil and gas.
According to Whitehall sources, rows over the strategy between Number 10 and the Treasury and the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy were ongoing up until last night.
Labour has accused Boris Johnson of caving to his own backbenchers and that the strategy would do nothing to help the millions of families facing an energy crisis.
A quarter of bus services in England have been scrapped in the last 10 years, according to new research by the Campaign for Better Transport.
Well, this week the government announced £1.2 billion in funding for local authorities, pledging to level up bus services outside of the capital.
Well, many hope that rural areas won't be forgotten either. Our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis on this one.
As the colour of spring crosses the Derbyshire Dales, a cascade of walkers follows in tow. Bob spent years rambling between his home in Matlock and the Peaks, but longer journeys need particular planning.
The first thing I have to think of is where are we going to park? Where I'm going to park, say, 13, 14 cars, but if people can go on buses, it takes the problem of finding a start point out to a degree, and also it takes out the problems to locals.
13 million people visit the Peak District each year. Most come by car, sometimes clogging narrow roads. There are buses, but few along scattered routes. Spence runs the local pub in Starkholmes, opposite the bus stop. It's rare he'll see one go past.
It's every 2 hours, so it's not always feasible for people to fit whatever they're going out for in with that, whether they've got appointments or anything, because they've got big waits or whatever. But as regards tourism and businesses, it doesn't really help it much.
Of course, bigger towns like Chesterfield do get more buses, but it still needs flexible services to run on-demand routes.
This is one of the buses we use. So if Mrs. Smith wants to go to the shops but she's in a wheelchair, then we can take out some seats, we can clamp her in the back, and this is the space we use for all the shopping. For some of our passengers, we know it's the only time they get out all week. So it's really essential that we can keep these type of services running and develop them to serve more people who have those needs.
The government's investing billions of pounds in public transport, pledging to make it cheaper and greener. Early figures show Derbyshire will get £47 million as part of the bus service improvement plan. It had hoped for twice as much, and like many councils, must lower aspirations. The council says that the funding will encourage passengers onto buses and cars off of roads, while helping its approach to climate change. But with 1 in 4 bus routes disappearing over the last decade, the Campaign for Better Transport says the government needs more ambition and more money. Norman's a former Lib Dem minister.
This is a case where number 10, the Prime Minister in particular, has to, or should be, pulling together different departments and getting a coordinated voice out of government. He's not doing that, and therefore the Department of Transport effectively is pursuing one policy and the Treasury a different one.
Passenger numbers are still shy of pre-pandemic levels. The return to traveller peaks won't be a short trip. Will Hollis for GB News in the East Midlands.
Right, OK, 5 minutes past 9 is the time. Just to say the Mayor of Greater Manchester, he's going to be our big interview in this half hour. I hope he's not held up in traffic.
Do you know what it is? We want to talk about transport problems, and he's late.
And he's late. So we're going to talk to him very, very shortly. But let's move on to the showbiz news that we've got. We've got Michelle Eagleton, and Michelle is a broadcaster on Happy Radio.
Yes.
And how happy are you today?
I'm very happy. Are you happy that I'm in United Colours just
very
for you,
happy.
Eamonn?
Very happy. That's very kind of you being able to do that. Isabel was talking about Ed Sheeran not so long ago and this court win that he had.
Yeah, so he's had a win, but he's saying nobody's a winner when these sorts of cases end up in court.
Well, absolutely. This has been going on for quite some time. We're talking about his hit Shape of You, out in 2017, one of the best-selling songs of that year. He was accused of copyright by Sam Chokri, and, of course, he's been cleared of that yesterday. But it has took its toll on his mental health. He said it's taken its toll on his creativity and also his wallet because, you know, he gets a lot of royalties for this song, and they have been on freeze since those claims. So it has been a good win, but as you say, it's bittersweet. And he's hoping that, you know, cases like this do not happen to other people again. But he's also celebrating this morning because he has been nominated for 3 Ivor Novello Awards. That has just been announced. And funnily enough, he's up for Best Songwriter.
And this is why he's up for so many awards. This is what the man does best. Also going to be, I don't know if they'll have Ed Sheeran at the wedding, but there's going to be a big wedding planned, and they've got the marquees out.
I know, it looks fabulous. It's the wedding, of course, of Brooklyn Beckham and Nicola Peltz, who, of course, is an actress over in the States. It's going to be huge, a big celeb fest. You've got the likes of Gordon Ramsay, you've got Mel B there. You haven't got Sir Elton John because he's on tour, and he obviously is the godfather. I'm starting a whole new trend there of Beckham, but it's going to be fantastic. Rumours are it's costing £3 million. Brooklyn is supposed to be very nervous about his wedding speech. He's not bothered about his first dance. He said he's quite a good mover. Have you seen him move before? Are you friends with the Beckhams?
Oddly enough, no.
I thought you might be going to the wedding.
Eamonn will know the Beckhams. He'll be invited to that wedding.
I never get that excited by the children of celebs. I mean, Brooklyn Beckham, what's he famous for? Being the most privileged kid in showbiz?
Well, he is supposed to be an aspiring chef, and we've seen him do a few things. Couldn't even make a piece of toast, could he, on that American show? No, apparently not. But like I say, he can bust some moves. The dress that Nicola's going to wear, everyone wants to know about. It's Valentino. She's wearing not just one wedding dress, she's wearing about 4 on the day. But she can do, as I say, reports of £3 million being spent on this, so they have lashed out on this wedding.
She changes so many times.
She is.
The way they used to do for Children in Need and Eurovision and whatever, you know, the hosts sort of every half hour change.
Absolutely. And they're going to be dancing to Snoop Dogg. He's going to be DJing at the wedding, so yeah. There's going to be lots of moves busted on that dance floor, but Brooklyn does say he might cry because he's quite an emotional person. So, you know, if your husband doesn't cry on your wedding day when he sees you walk down that aisle, I think that's shocking.
Yeah, I think it's nice if a guy cries on your wedding day.
I dread my daughter getting married because I wouldn't be able to string 2 words together throughout the whole
bless
day.
you.
Yeah. But you see, the thing is, my Isabel here, it's...
I knew you were going to say this.
Well, see, you're so vain. You knew what I was going to say. Isabel thinks she is a dead ringer, a doppelganger.
No, I don't.
She thinks she is Kate.
No, I wish
the
I was.
Duchess of
I'm a good 10
Cambridge.
stone heavier than her.
No,
but they're on the lookout.
They're on the lookout
The
for
Crown
a
are.
Kate look-alike.
Yeah. I see it. I see the resemblance, yeah. But it is Kate when she was 16. So.
Oh, right. All right.
I'm not saying nothing at all. But no, it's for The Crown, the Series 6 of The Crown. They're on the lookout for Kate, William and Harry, so they are keeping it very up to date. That series is going to follow them through 1998 to 2005. So if there are any Kate lookalikes out there, you know, this is going to be a great role. And obviously there's going to be more of The Crown, so she could be seeing right through it. So actually, Series 7, it could be Isabel's chance, you know?
No, but my Isabel is she is a Kate, like you are.
I know.
The way you do, but she is a fashion icon for you.
I love her style. Yeah, I think she's really. She just thinks she's great. She just doesn't put foot wrong. Lots of people feel that about her, don't they? That she's just effortlessly understated and classy. And I really like her.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
Nikki Graham, a documentary about her. It's such a sad story, and for people that name doesn't mean anything. Of course, she was the star in one of the original Big Brothers, and hugely public battle with an eating disorder.
I know, yeah. Well, this is a big tribute to her tonight on Channel 4, the documentary Who Is She? Aptly named, because obviously she did that Who Is She debacle in the diary room.
Yeah.
She did suffer a lot with anorexia, the eating disorder. It's the anniversary of her passing on Saturday, but this is going to be a celebration of her life, you know. She was such a fun character, and it's going to be a rise to fame. You're going to hear from her family, her close friends, Imogen Thomas, who starred in Big Brother with her, and they are all saying some lovely things about her. There's some home videos and archive in there as well. Do you know she actually started out on Blind Date, though?
Did she?
Yeah, she was first on Blind Date, then she was an extra on EastEnders. So there's lots of things that you'll find out about Nikki.
She was really young.
She was 38 when she passed away.
I tell
know,
you,
so sad.
about 15 years ago or so, I was in a hospital in London, very mundane appointment, or I was filming, I can't really remember what, but anyway, I was walking down a corridor and she was there with her mum. And I knew her, and we sat down and started talking, and she told me why she was in hospital, and she was in attending an eating disorder clinic, and it was a great hope for her that they thought this could turn her around, and she'd put so much faith in this. And anybody who has eating disorders, I mean, it was sad beyond belief. It really was sad. She wanted so much to do something about it. And just couldn't. She was in the grip of all of this. But a nice family, they were very close, and it just was very sad that nothing ever came to it. It just didn't turn out for her.
But her memory will be celebrated tonight, and I think that's great, because we will never forget those iconic moments that she gave us on TV. TV gold, absolutely.
Okay. Listen, lovely talking to you, Michelle. You're on radio again today, are you?
I am, making you
4 till 7?
happy, 4 till 7, happy radio.
Happy radio, happy rest of today. And thanks for making it such a happy experience for us here in Manchester. Thank you.
Fabulous. I shall go and visit you in London anytime.
Sounds great. We'll take you up on that. Thanks, Michelle.
God bless.
Stay with us. We're told Andy Burnham is in the building. We'll be talking to him after this quick break.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Very good to see you again. We are broadcasting live from Manchester. We've been here all week, and what a week it has been. It has been very, very impressive. It's been very welcoming. From us, it's been very educational as to what has gone on, and there's a lot going on. We're joined by the Mayor of Greater Manchester, and that is Andy Burnham. Mr. Burnham, very good to see you.
And you. Good morning.
I wish we could start with some good news and whatever. Front page of the Manchester Evening News today. Now the police offer to help besieged airport chiefs. What's going on there and why is it going on?
It's a really challenging situation. We're not alone. Other airports are struggling as well, but we've had particular challenges. And people will ask why. One of the reasons why is Manchester took this decision not to cancel people's flights. They could have cancelled people's holiday flights, but they tried not to do that, which I hope people understand why. But that has led, obviously, to real pressure and scenes that we just don't want to see. They're unacceptable. So we don't run the airport. They are independently run, but we're supporting them in every way we can. Obviously, we've asked for more Greater Manchester Police support. I've offered Transport for Greater Manchester support to help them. And we're sort of rallying round.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
So we have travel-safe officers who go onto our trams, and I'm making some of those available to the airport to help with the queues, because I think the worst situation is when you're at an airport and you're in a queue and no one's telling you what's going on, and it just looks like, oh, God, that's the worst, isn't it? And I think we just need to give better information to people. We are saying, and I'll be glad to get this message over to people, 3 hours in advance of your flight. Arrive no later than 3 hours.
I mean, because some people have been saying to us they kind of wish their holiday had been cancelled. It's taken all the joy out of it, people with small children, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. You've been warning, haven't you? It could be weeks and weeks of this.
It's a recruitment issue, basically. And I think people do have to understand that if you're an airport and you grind right down as they did during the pandemic, you can't just spring back to life. And some people have left, and it's a hard thing to do. So all airports are struggling with it. To one extent or another. Yeah. They've got people waiting to be cleared, so I've asked the Home Office to see if they could speed that up as well. It's a difficult situation. There's no getting away from it. I can understand why some people say that, but actually most people will say, look, I'd rather have a bit of inconvenience to get on my holiday, because obviously people want their holidays, don't they, given everything we've all
And I'd like to talk about the airport, and I'd like to talk about the infrastructure of Manchester and Greater Manchester, and why that airport, which used to be called Ringway, is so important to this whole area of Greater Manchester. When I came here in 1986, it was much smaller. There were farms dotted all round it. And it's a significant employer and growth generator for you, isn't it?
Oh, massively. It's so important, Eamonn, as you've said. It's been built up over the years. The councils have always had a stake in it. It's a source of pride for people. It's the north of England's major airport, international airport, and it has been rebuilt actually recently, so there's a brand new terminal. So it is frustrating to find itself in this position at the moment. But
what does it mean to people in terms of employment? Do you know, when we talk about what are your employment opportunities, your career opportunities and whatever, you offer a lot through that airport. And, you know, I know as somebody who's Irish, that we come in all the time from Ireland, back and forward. People fly up and down from London, down from Scotland and whatever as well. It really keeps Manchester, through the football teams as well, through arts and sciences and all that sort of thing, really well integrated.
Oh, massively. So we have long-haul flights that other airports outside of London and the South East don't. So, you know, when I'm trying to persuade investors to come to Manchester, and we've been quite successful, if you look around, there's lots of inward investment. The airport is a big part of our argument that there's direct connectivity to the US, to the Far East. Manchester Airport offers all of that. We will get them through these difficulties, no question. And as you've probably felt this week, this is a city region that's on the up. People are coming here. There's a real excitement about the place, and we don't want to lose that.
Oh, look, the skyline's changing undoubtedly, and as you say, lots of investment coming in.
The weather isn't, unfortunately.
But the infrastructure is still creaking, would you agree? I mean, people have been saying to us this morning, whether it be email, tweets, or people in the studio with us, there are still problems, real problems with the roads, with the trains, with the buses. And I know this is something you want to tackle, but there is more you can do, isn't there?
I think you've put your finger on it. You know, Manchester has grown from the time Eamonn was describing in the 80s or 90s. It's grown. So it's unbelievably different to the place I came back to.
Doubled the population in 20 years.
You know, nobody lived in the city centre if you go back to that time. And thousands of people now live in our city centre. And I think, in truth, the growth has been ahead of the infrastructure. And I think that is one of the issues that we're honestly struggling with.
Yes.
And so I've put forward a plan for what I call a London-style public transport system. I've taken the decision to put buses back under public control. I was in your great city, Belfast, last week, and I've seen what they have, which is an integrated system. And
CityLink.
It's brilliant, actually. It works really well. So we are on with that. And the government this week, to be fair, have confirmed £1 billion of infrastructure funding to support that. And we've got funding to effectively create one system out of our trams and buses. So, like London,
you see, this is incredible.
You can pay.
I remember when they started laying down the tram tracks and things here, and everybody went, "Oh, what the heck is this? The disruption was awful. Streets were closed off." Look at what has been created. And I do say, when people criticise things like HS2 and whatever, do you want a Victorian infrastructure for the rest of your life? There's got to be some pain for a lot of gain. Things have got to be joined up.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we're showing that we can bring investment to the north of England, so back us with that infrastructure. And that's the argument that we're making to the government. We will introduce next year a London-style public transport system, starting in Wigan and Bolton. We will cap adult fares at £2, £1 for a child on the buses, and I think that will help this city region go to the next level. Transport is holding us back. You are absolutely right, and I will not sort of kind of shy away from that criticism. But when we get a better transport system that's more affordable for people, so people can leave the car at home, the whole place will function better.
That's the good news. The bad news is integrated into all of that is what's called CAZ, Clean Air Zone. Right, OK. So this is going to be across Greater Manchester. And what you've done, and this is from Susan, who's been in touch. Susan, good morning to you via tweet. And she says, basically, what Andy Burnham's decided to do is to charge the working people of Greater Manchester who drive small vans, taxis, leisure vehicles, coaches, HGVs, a minimum of 10 quid a day, going up a lot more the bigger the vehicle, taxing lowest working people who are self-employed in businesses. And she just simply says, why are you doing this?
Well, I don't want to. And I understand where Susan's coming from. And if I'm honest, I always had worries about it. This was not instigated by us. The government lost a court case a few years ago and then issued directives to a number of cities. Birmingham, Bath actually have got a clean air zone. Portsmouth, London have got an ultra-low emission zone. They basically said you've got to take action to reduce air pollution. And we are asking you to work on the benchmark of a clean air zone that charges people. So we weren't given a choice about that.
So you didn't want clean air?
No, we want clean air, absolutely. But I think I've always said to the government, we've got to clean up the air without threatening jobs, businesses or livelihoods. And I argue with the government for the money to help people upgrade their vehicles so they wouldn't face any charges. Because obviously if your vehicle is compliant, you don't pay a charge. And they didn't put up enough funding. And last year, I was hearing about inflation in the cost of vehicles, and it was going to get harder for people to upgrade their vans. And actually, we went back to the government early this year and said, this is just not workable. It really is not workable anymore. And we negotiated a delay in the implementation. And in my view, Eamonn, that allows us to do this via incentives rather than charges.
Gotcha.
And that's, we're asking the government to work with us on this because we don't want to charge people in the way that Susan said.
You know, you've got so much to do here. This job, when you left national politics and you came to be the Mayor of Greater Manchester, I don't know if you would have known the amount of work and the amount of controversy.
I thought I was signing up for a quieter life when I left Westminster. It's not quite panned out like that.
So, when are you going back to Westminster?
Oh, no time soon. I mean, my heart is here. It always has been. You know, I love the northwest of England. I love Manchester, but I've got affinities to Liverpool as well. I mean, people know that. I always felt a bit of a fish out of water at times in Westminster. It wasn't my natural habitat. You know, it's.
But you're going back. You know you're going
back. People are crying out for you to come back, aren't they? A lot of Labour people very unsatisfied with the way Keir Starmer's taking the party.
I have got a really important job to do here. It's a tough job, if I'm being honest. It comes with a high profile. I don't fully control everything, but people sort of think I do, and it's hard, you know, because sometimes you're in the middle of that. The clean air zone's an example, the airport. But I'm trying my best to make those issues work and find solutions. I'm really genuinely passionate about what we're doing here. The north of England, I think, has got the best opportunity it will ever have to change, to get the transport that we need. And so I am very, and it's not, this sounds like a politician's answer, but it actually happens to be true. I love what I'm doing here. I consider it a complete privilege to do this. Serving a full second term, obviously I might, I'll consider my options after that, but, I actually feel much happier in this job than I ever did when I was in Westminster. And the reason why, you can be yourself. You're in the place where you know, people that you love, you just can be yourself. And I think sometimes in politics, in Westminster, you have to behave a certain way, you have to say a certain thing, you have to vote a certain way. And I think the public say, well, they don't come over as sort of looking like they believe what they're doing. And I felt myself becoming like that when I was in Westminster. I feel happier here. Yeah,
you say, you paint a rosy picture, feeling happier. But we all know there's a big shadow hanging over you. And that is the fear of relegation.
Oh, God, Eamonn, I was at Burnley last night, and I can't believe I'm managing to be so upbeat actually this morning, because it was devastating, to be honest. Absolutely devastating. And yeah, it's.
But look at it this
awful
way: you could have a good season next year. You could win the championship, and things would look very rosy. It's inconceivable. Everton have never gone down to the lower tier.
I am 52 years old. I have followed Everton home and away all my life. And I was at Burnley last night, and I looked at some of the younger, kids around. I just felt for them so much. The idea of Everton not being in the top tier just fills me with just absolute dread. But these players, they need to step up. One player last night, Richarlison, was doing what needed to be done in terms of leading from the front. It's not good enough. These fans deserve a lot better than what they are giving them at the moment.
You could be singing my song here. You could be talking about my team here. Exactly the same.
We're playing you on Saturday.
That's exactly right.
That's a difficult thing when you're the Mayor of Greater Manchester, a day like that. But I'll cope with it, I'm sure.
And you'll be aware, Eamonn and I've been here all week.
Thanks for coming as well.
Well, I wanted to ask you what you think. What you think about GBNews being here. I mean, we've chosen Manchester as the first place we've visited as a breakfast show outside of London because it's got our fastest-growing audience. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people in the northwest like our channel?
People often feel they don't have a voice, you see.
Why? Westminster, I said before, is London-centric, but so is our media, because the country's London-centric, the media is London-centric. And, I was the culture secretary that dragged the BBC, and they did have to be dragged kicking and screaming to Salford. But look at that. That's, I think, improved their diversity and the content that they put out. I think it's great that you're doing this. This is why I'm here, thanking you for coming and seeing what we're doing in the city and reporting things good and bad and challenging. This place has got things happening here, and the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. So, yeah, I'd like to see more of it.
Well, Mayor, it's been a privilege to
Yeah,
be
it
here
really
this
has.
week. Thank you in your busy schedule for being our last guest of the week and summing up things just the way they are. We really appreciate your time. We wish you good luck with what you've got to do, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
But no good luck for Saturday.
That would be too far.
You're speaking for all of my voters when you say that, or half of them, I should say.
So there we are. I
yeah.
can't believe it. It's just flown by this week. We've had a fantastic time. Thank you for all of the really positive comments. They're the reason that we came here, and they've just kept flooding in, haven't they, throughout the course of the week?
Who knows where we're going to next? It's up to you. Have yourselves a good weekend. Isabel and I are away for Easter, not together.
We always have to say this.
But we will be away for Easter, and we'll see you in a week or so's
Yeah.
time. Thanks very much for watching. Tom
Bye-bye.
Harwood next.
Hello, good morning. It's cold and it's windy out there first thing, and there'll be some hill snow in places as well, mainly northern Scotland. But through the day, actually, brightening skies will bring sunny spells for many as this area of low pressure moves into the North Sea. Now, as it moves away, it is bringing colder air southwards across the country, along with spells of rain, hill snow and showers. But the isobars will slowly start to spread out, and that means that the strongest winds that we've seen overnight will begin to moderate. Nevertheless, it's a windy day, and the hill snow that we're seeing across northern Scotland will push south, degenerate into an area of showers, and mainly the theme through the afternoon is for bright spells and showers. Rain and hail at lower levels, snow over hills, those showers edging further and further south through the day, but it's actually mainly dry and bright in the south, 12 Celsius in the south, 8 for Manchester, 8 for Newcastle, 6 to 7 for the Northern Isles. There'll be further showers coming through during Thursday night, but actually, as we go through the hours of darkness, increasingly the showers become fewer and further between, with a better chance of clear spells, lighter winds, and as a result, a frost forming in many places, particularly for Northern Ireland, central, southern Scotland, northern England, North Wales, for example. I think in the far south, it'll turn cloudy and there could be a few spots of rain to wake up to during tomorrow morning. That rain will eventually pull away, allowing brighter skies, even some sunshine to develop quite widely across England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland keep the brisk wind from the north, stays cold, and as a result we'll see further wintry showers, particularly for northern Scotland. But away from the showers, actually for many it's a dry and bright day, plenty of sunshine eventually